now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online, and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
And you're very welcome along to Wednesday morning's OTB AM. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed here, and delighted to be with you on whatever platform you're listening to us. We've launched a multitude of new things over the last little while that we'll be telling you more about in the coming days and weeks. But no doubt, if you've gone onto our website and clicked the listen button, you might have noticed some good stuff happening there in the background. So get onto the website, offtheball.com, click the listen button, and away we go. I did hear of some people who are Chromecasting us on their phone and using us in the background as a radio show, which was like something we didn't even think of telling people to do over the last 18 months. But it sounds pretty smart to me.
I do that all the time. Do you not do that?
What?
Throw on like a bit of YouTube in the background.
On your phone?
A Chromecast from my phone to... Obviously Chromecast from my phone to my TV.
No, they're using...
The Chromecast is...
It doesn't automatically... So, I didn't understand it fully, but they were using... There's a facility in that to cast, right? Mm-hmm. Which they're still listening to on their phone and going about on their phone without... So I'm talking about commuters on a bus.
Okay.
Don't really understand how it works, but...
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's the best start to a show ever.
I'm a bit of a technophobe, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
You were at the Maradona documentary last night. The great and the good and the unwashed of the Irish football media were all there. If a bomb had hit the IFI last night, well, there would be no sports content made for at least 2 weeks.
Nothing to cast this morning if that had happened. It was great. Diego Maradona, it's called, and it's just almost telling from the title because he seems to go at one-name titles. Asif Kapadia, the director, with his previous 2 feature films, which was Senna and Amy, and this time he's gone for Diego Maradona, and he does focus in on this whole theme of the 2 characters of Diego Maradona. You've got your Diego, the innocent boy from Argentina who became one of the most outrageously talented sports people the world has ever seen. And then you've got Maradona, which is the man that the outrageously talented sports person became. And
the liar.
The liar, the cheat, as some people would call him, the people he became involved with. And it deals with the... I think calling it a grey area is actually being quite kind to Diego Maradona at times, but he deals with that grey area, if we can call it that for a moment, extremely well and extremely ruthlessly at times as well, which is extraordinary given he's got 4 or 5 interviews with Maradona himself in the documentary. So it's quite tough, I'd imagine, to actually speak to somebody and knowing deep down that this is going to be a cold look at you. That being said, you do come away from it a little bit sympathetic for Maradona in his situation, so maybe that is ultimately what it ends up with. But it is a brilliant watch. It is, like, in terms of what you might expect from the previous 2 documentaries, it's right at that level as well, and would highly recommend going to see it in a cinema. I
heard Steve interviewed, and he was talking about there's a precise moment where he feels Maradona becomes Maradona and stops being Diego. It's when there's a paternity suit. So Maradona, apparently, it's a very Latin American thing to want a son, to call him your own name. I mean, and so he wanted a boy called Diego, and then he gets a boy called Diego, but he's like, no, that's not my child. And he knows it's his child. And Asif was like, yeah, you can actually see in his eyes that he knows he's lying, and that he knows that everybody knows he's lying, but he continues with the lie. And it's at that moment that he stopped being the innocent young boy and becomes the character he ultimately becomes. If we put this together with a piece of the 442 cover story that we've just been talking about on the show last week with Andy Mitten, and I wonder, is there like a final act in Maradona's life where he stops being Maradona and goes back and just is like, well, okay, right, well, I can stop lying now, I can stop doing all that, or is it too late? Has that ship sailed? I don't know.
But that's exactly it. Once I don't want to spoil the ending or anything like that, but the way it does conclude, you can come away from it making your own mind up as to whether or not he has gone back to being more Diego than Maradona now. Ultimately, kind of touching on things like acknowledging that son that he kind of lied about, really, essentially in the first place, which created this war with the press, which created this sort of me versus the world, me versus the system sort of setup that Maradona, kind of the Maradona part of Diego Maradona, sort of seemed to thrive under and seemed to grow under. It is brilliant. Like, you kind of forget. I would certainly have no idea of the importance of his time in Naples other than watching this. Like, I mean, it's Maradona, the Argentinian footballer, first, and his club career comes second. In terms of the lore of Maradona, like, over your shoulder, this picture of 1986 or that's Italia 90 annual, but it's from 1986, obviously. And like, that is what I remember, but obviously that isn't the case. Obviously, if you talk about any footballer nowadays, it's like the club career is first and the international career is second. And they may be remembered in decades to come for their international career because of greater moments or whatever it may be. But ultimately, the lingering attitude you have towards a player is made on the week-to-week basis. And the Italian relationship with Diego Maradona is just such a fascinating one, and one that is explored really, really well in this.
I mean, you've got to cast your mind back to a time when most clubs were staffed with players from the local area, or were staffed from, like, certainly their own leagues. There was no real foreigners playing football in any league to any kind of significant level compared to now. And then the Italian league started to import some of the best players in the world. Obviously, Maradona had been playing in Barcelona, but hadn't reached the levels that he was capable of yet. And wins 2 leagues for a team that's never won the league. In the south of the country, when the league is always won by the teams in the north, by Juventus predominantly, who are the richest team, and then Milan and Inter and a little bit of Roma. But Naples could never win because Naples was a city completely destroyed by corruption and greed, and then any time it made a little bit of a recovery, the north would just swat it down under its thumb and go, no, screw you. And he comes and drags them to league titles on the basis of his left foot and his dribbling ability. You can only imagine what that must have been like.
Yeah.
Week in, week out, you've got the best player in the world playing for you out of nowhere. And like, it's a bit random that he chose Naples, right? It's a bit random that he's at Napoli. But you can see how an entire city would just be like, he's our guy. Yeah,
exactly. And you talk about the crushing of the Naples as a city, the people, the club from the Northerners in Italy, and really they absolutely hate them. They view them as scum of the earth. And I say that in the present tense because even just speaking to Asif after the documentary last night, he would say that, those attitudes that they had during peak Maradona still pertain to today, chants about cholera and everything like that. They are still the attitudes of quite a lot of Northern Italian footballers. They view Naples with disdain. They view the football team with disdain. They are inferior to the Northern people. And maybe that sort of helped the identity of Diego Maradona. Maybe he identified with that a little bit, the ability to fight against what the perceived natural order is, because certainly in Italy, as you say, the perceived natural order had Napoli nowhere near the top of that. So yeah, it's a fascinating discussion. Like, I mean, it's a good point as well that the idea of Maradona coming out and thriving in an environment, if it's going to thrive in any environment, it probably would have been Naples around that time.
Yeah, it worked for him all right. Some clarity on what people are doing from Keelan on Facebook says multi-screen, half-screen YouTube and half-screen social media, Gmail, etc. So there you go.
Yeah,
I've never used the multi-screen. Does it work?
It does. I've done it a couple of times on my phone. I can't get out of it. Like, once you go half-screen and half-screen, it feels like I'm stuck in this loop forever, and I just have to reset my phone. So if he's got any tips on how to make the best out of his half and half screen, I'd be gladly appreciative.
You're addicted to it, eh? You can't get out of it. It's like an episode of Black Mirror.
Well, exactly. It's just it's me with one news site on the top and another article on the bottom.
So we're what is it? Wednesday. We're 24 hours away. 36 hours. Not even 36 hours. We're about 30 hours away from the start of the US Open in Pebble Beach. We're going to get John Duggan in a little bit later on to talk about that. We're going to bring back the power rankings, despite what people have said.
Bring back?
They're not dead. This is where they get into their own, right? This is where you make a quantum leap forward and you ignore the shadow boxing of the first 9 weeks of the championship, and we start taking things seriously, right?
Me and my power rankings is like the first fight in our relationship last weekend. It's first round of the qualifiers. If there's going to be a test of our mettle, it will be last weekend. But we're back stronger than ever and more unbreakable than ever.
Okay, that's I'll run you through exactly what's coming up. Sports pages right now. Deal or no deal. We're going to go through some of the transfer tittle tattle and rumours. And the news that Pep Guardiola might be about to take a year out. We've got Donald McRae coming your way at 8:10. A brilliant interview about Gerry Storey and his new book, the US Open, as I said, that the golf at Pebble Beach with John Duggan. Sports news with Phil just after 9 o'clock, and your power rankings at 9:05 this morning. You can get in touch with us using the hashtag OTB AM. It is 7:40 and time for the papers. I start this morning with the Examiner. And here it is. What I've gone through, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. This is a horrific concussion story in Gaelic games. Retiring Galway footballer Cormac Bain, on his concussion nightmare, suffered a couple of really bad concussions and is out now from the sport forever. Stuck in the middle, Liam Brady on Ireland's central cause for concern. Liam Brady, one of Ireland's great midfielders, sees some issues with the midfield area. Kieran Shannon, sport has a cruel way of reminding greats that they too are mere mortals. And this is the story of Kevin Durant's Achilles. I couldn't actually make out the pop, but apparently on the video people are saying don't watch this if you're squeamish. Is it evident?
So it's a ripple of skin.
Right.
But like, you can have a ripple of skin when your foot lands on the ground and you've got enough muscle and enough skin for it to kind of wave a little bit. But clearly the ripple here is the Achilles just shattering.
Yeah. It's
been a crazy 24 hours, hasn't it? An injury.
We didn't talk about it at all yesterday in the show.
No, I guess it happened a little bit too early. It was or also as well, I think it was kind of hard to comprehend just how huge the story was, or what was to actually come over the next couple of hours. Because yesterday afternoon it really took on a new life.
So just to recap, it was 3-1 heading into this game. The Golden State Warriors, who were favourites ahead of the Raptors, ahead of the series against the Raptors.
Yeah, I would say
strong favourites. Were 3-1 down and looking like they were on their way out, and they played Kevin Durant for the first time in the final. He was just back from injury. There'd been this whole narrative up to the finals about how they were a better team without him, and then when they were 3-1 down, they're like, oh well, obviously they're not a better team without him. He starts the game really well, plants his foot, the Achilles snaps, and the Golden State Warriors win by a point, 106-105 in Toronto, and the next game is in Oakland. Is that right, to go 3-all? It is.
Yes, yeah.
And that game's on Friday morning. So they're 2-3 down. Obviously, it's a best of 7. So if Toronto win Game 6, then they are crowned champions, and the upset will be on. But what happened afterwards?
The GM of Golden State comes out and basically bawls his eyes out, and this whole discourse then starts to happen around all the US media. I guess when the US media gets planted with a notion of a talking point, it just tends to go like wildfire. And every single TV show yesterday was like, whose fault is this? Whose fault is it that one of the most supremely gifted athletes in our beautiful country has had to go down like this? And maybe it's nobody's fault. Maybe it's a case that Kevin Durant had injury problems. Kevin Durant is an insane competitor, and Kevin Durant also plays for a team that recognise his set of talents, and that when you're 3-1 down and at the biggest stage of the season, and your player wants to come and play and get on the court, and you're saying to yourself, right, we need to pull this out of the fire, you put that guy in. So this has been the whole clamour for blame, the blame towards the front office at Golden State, which is a little bit ridiculous given the tears that were there yesterday. Like, I don't think it's their fault. Is there blame at the feet of Steve Kerr? I don't think so. Is there blame at the feet of Kevin Durant? I'm not sure there actually is, to be quite honest with you. Shit happens sometimes. Like, he's desperately unlucky. He's got a bad injury profile now. This is all exacerbated by the fact that Kevin Durant has probably played his last game for Golden State Warriors.
Is that going to happen? Is there not? So his Achilles, it's a year, basically. It's 8 months to a year out. So he won't really be available until the middle of next season, or the end of latter half of next season, and potentially won't be any good until the following year after that. So did Golden State not just roll his contract up for a year and say, we will look after you, we'll put our arms around you?
That's a very good point, actually. That's something that hasn't been discussed too much, the idea that Golden State now actually have the power. And I think that will become a huge talking point once we're away from the sensitive area of Kevin Durant being hurt.
So Durant was supposed to be leaving to join the Knicks.
Knicks, yeah.
I mean, I don't know why anybody would join the Knicks. They've been crap since the 70s.
But he's going to join with Kyrie Irving, and they were going to make a super team. Well, like, before the draft lottery, they also had the supposed possibility of Zion Williamson as well. But the draft didn't even go, the lottery didn't even go the Knicks' way. So, like, if they managed to get Kyrie there as well as Kevin Durant, they would have a super team. But as you say, this changes everything in the short term. What you could look at is like something that Golden State did themselves last year when they got Boogie Cousins in, who had terrible injury record, and they were like, let's just get him in and let's just play him after Christmas because he's not going to be available until then, and he's been an important part for the last couple of weeks. Like, I don't think the Knicks have that capacity to do that because they're just not good enough.
No, you can't pay him 20 million a year, 15 million a year, whatever the figure is. I have no idea how much these guys are getting paid at the minute, but you can't pay him that contract and not play him for a year. So it's tough for him. He's obviously a free agent at the end of the season. Right, well, then maybe nobody pays him.
Maybe not. Like it's a tricky one from Golden State's perspective in terms of actually giving him a commitment to keep him around.
Well, they have the cash.
Franchise. They seem to, but they're also kind of near the top level of their cash, as far as I'm aware, that they basically got on the end of this salary cap gravy train. They timed their run perfectly, Golden State, and that allowed them to get Durant in the first place and make a super team even more super.
So maybe they don't have the cash. Okay, fair enough.
Like, I'm not sure. It's going to be a fascinating Game 6, that's for sure. And I know we'll have Kieran Donaghy on tomorrow morning to get stuck into that with a proper bit of preview. But this has just turned into a fascinating series. I was watching old Sports Centre videos of Kawhi Leonard talking yesterday, just before he got drafted, saying, I just want to prove everybody wrong. People say I don't have the handles, people say I can't shoot. And he's turned out to be arguably the best player currently in the NBA. And
he's Toronto star, he's driving them forward.
He is, and he certainly has been doing that. He's probably got the best laugh in all the sport. If anybody wants to go and actually look at Kawhi laughing, it's just basically like a robot with a tad of emotion.
Where are we going?
We're going to go to the Sun this morning. 2020 vision is the headline. Mick says plan is still cool. So this is about the succession plan to allow Stephen Kenny to become senior manager of the Republic of Ireland team. And Robbie's a runner. This is an exclusive, although we might see it in another paper, by David Coverdale, saying Robbie Keane is likely to be offered a coaching role as part of pal Jonathan Woodgate's new regime at Middlesbrough, which is an interesting one. Coleman musters them. Seamus Coleman says that Ireland struggles against Gibraltar are no reason to press the panic button. And Blues to carry on Sarri. So Chelsea made an amazing last-ditch attempt to get Maurizio Sarri to stay on as boss. Juventus obviously look to be the front runners. Not just the front runners, it looks like this was going to happen, that Sarri was going to Juve. They know it's going to be tough to get him to reconsider. Chelsea know it's going to be tough, but they're going to try their best, it seems. If you're Maurizio Sarri, you'd be a little bit stupid to say, yeah, I will come running back.
Is this not Chelsea just making sure that they are due some compo from Juve? It's like, oh, we really want you to stay, Maurizio. Is that not what this is?
They've just realised what happened with their previous manager and that particular case. So, yeah. Or is it Chelsea saying, listen, Frank, make up your mind soon because we've got a manager we're about to kick out the door.
To Lampard?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, right. So then, yeah, there's definitely machinations going on. They do not want to keep him, though. That much you would say is true. Okay, Horan, Dublin success down to volunteerism, not money. This is an interesting story here from the Indo. GAA President John Horan has said the chief reason for Dublin's dominance is the work of voluntary coaches and not the funding the county have received over the past decade. The Indo then helpfully reminds you, between 2007 and 2018, Dublin received 18 million in games development funding, with Kildare and Meath receiving just over 1 million over the same period. 18 million versus 1 million. Accounting for population, the rate of investment in Dublin was still more than double that of any other county, leading many to suggest the GAA's funding has been the chief cause of their footballers' dominance. Not so, says GAA President and Dublin clubman John Horan. Dublin's success, a lot of it is based on voluntary effort and the games programme. Yeah, we do have the coaches going into schools, and that is a benefit, but that project is 50% funded by the clubs. Schools are the predominant area in which the paid coaches work, and they work not alone in hurling and football, but in camogie and ladies football as well. Horan believes, and then he goes on to talk about the decline in attendances because no one cares about the Leinster Championship anymore because Dublin are going to win every year, forever and ever. Amen.
It's kind of like the idea of Croke Park not being the Dublin home ground. This idea that money hasn't helped make Dublin better. It's literally called games development funding. You are there to develop games. You are there to make the people who get the money better. There's no need to be ashamed of this, John Horan. It's fine.
I think
Dublin get money. They use it really well. The money has led to success. And it's amazing to see the growth of Gaelic games in the capital city. It's brilliant, especially for people in the capital city.
Yeah. So I think that if I was in their shoes, I'd be going, this has worked and now we need to match the funding in other counties, and we're looking at ways to make those counties be able to access this funding. So we're rolling out the pilot programme that we set up in Dublin as far nationwide as we possibly can. We're asking clubs within counties to collaborate, to share the cost of a games development officer in counties that aren't as populous, where clubs can't afford it. We're working on ways to bring Kildare and Meath up as opposed to, no, it has no impact. That's not what it is. It's about the volunteerism. Because if you're a volunteer in another county and you read this, what are you going to think? Am I doing something wrong? Is it a not so subtle dig at me? It's not intended that way, but it's a little bit. It's completely unself-aware. That's what this is. It's like it's telling the volunteers in Kildare and Meath they're not doing their job right, because if they were, then it would be a level playing field, and it wouldn't be the procession that we've seen every year for the last 10 years. That's what that suggests. Whereas in fact, having club and these coaches, while they might do most of their time in schools, they don't come from nowhere. They come from clubs. So they're full-time GAA people who also then are club members, and who are no doubt very dedicated club members, because that's how you end up wanting to spend your life being a GAA coach. So there's like mad knock-on impacts all over the place that is clearly helping, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I actually don't think it's a bad thing that they've decided that they could have this impact on GAA in Dublin. They just need to say, we need to have this impact in Cork and Limerick and Galway and Kildare and Meath and Louth. Like, it's really easy to do. You just have to say, yeah, the money works. And then all the other ways that they're making money suddenly begin to make some sense.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's kind of like saying, well, what did we spend 18 million quid on?
Yeah, it was pointless. Well, sure, we had the volunteers there anyway. What's the point of this?
Yeah, like in any other organisation, if their president was saying, actually, that money we spent isn't the chief reason why that success in that particular area is happening.
You'd be like, then stop spending the money.
If you're going on the PR offensive and you're John Horn, you should be saying it's actually all about the money. We are such a good organisation. We managed to pick a part of the county, give them a lot of money, tell them how to spend it, help them how to spend it, and they've turned into an absolute superpower. This is such a good news story. We as administrators are absolutely class. That's what he should be saying. But he's not. Maybe it's just extreme modesty on his part. But hopefully, like it is such a good shout. I mean, like really, the expertise, the blueprint, pardon the pun, is there.
If anyone made a close examination of the Dublin senior teams, you'd find out that an awful lot of the work that's going into the underage structure is being done by voluntary people and not by the paid coaches. Dublin's success, a lot of it based on voluntary effort in the games programme. Yeah, we do have the paid coaches going into schools, and that is a benefit, but that project is 50% funded by the clubs. That's not an argument against giving the same amount of money to everybody else, or trying to find ways to increase the money going everywhere else. And it's also not an argument to say that the money didn't have an impact. It's part funded by the clubs. It's like, well, that's how the lottery grant systems work, but you don't get the lottery grant unless you already own your own pitch or unless you're able to fill in the forms. So the clubs are all able to fill in the forms to get the money because the money exists. If the money didn't exist, they wouldn't be part funding them.
Yeah.
You know, it's a circular argument where we've got better volunteers than you is really the subtext. Maybe they do. Maybe Dublin GAA people are better than everybody else. Like, I mean, they definitely got their house in order with John Costello, and then they put Pat Gilroy in, and they put good management in place. Desi Farr had a big role to play with the under-21s coming through, and this is an exceptional crop of players, and there's no guarantee that the next crop of players is going to be as good, but there's going to be a whole heap of them, so they'll have an opportunity to find different types of players that they need into the future. And I can't accept that John Horan is saying that everybody else needs better volunteers, because that is definitely the subtext.
Yeah, it certainly is. And that is what a lot of people will take it up as this morning. The back page of the Irish Daily Star is Pep City break, shattered Guardiola plotting his exit. Pep Guardiola basically saying that he might consider another sabbatical if Manchester City win the Champions League next year. And this is the UK version of it, and you can see Mo Salah there with a massive fish. Liverpool ace Mo Salah is making a habit of landing the big ones. Fresh from the club's 2-0 triumph over Tottenham in the Champions League final in Madrid, Salah reeled in another whopper during a post-season break. Egypt superstar Salah posted this picture of him capturing this Dorado fish, known as the chicken of the sea due to its succulent taste. The former Chelsea and Roma flyer also captured a smaller specimen inset.
Chicken of the sea.
That'd be class, like going fishing and then eating chicken. That's like the dream.
But not actually chicken, fish.
Yeah, but like it's tastes like chicken.
The chicken of the sea. We want Keane. Middlesbrough are after Robbie Keane. Middlesbrough target Robbie for coaching role. Robbie Keane was last night dramatically linked to a coaching role at Middlesbrough under former teammate Jonathan Woodgate. Is this a good thing? Is it a good thing? I suppose it is. More Irish people involved in full-time football. Keane and Duff, are they the Rog and Paul O'Connell dream team duo for Ireland?
The Wild Geese.
After Stephen Kenny. Hockey, Ireland destroys Singapore 11-0 in Banbridge. So the Irish hockey team and the USA women's national team, the international flat track bullies of their sport at the moment. Give Chelsea job to Lampard now, says Ferdinand. Rio also talking about being involved in Man United, refusing to rule out being involved in Manchester United as a technical director. So he still wants that gig. Roscommon are on the rise with talent to progress deep into the summer. People are waking up to Roscommon. That was one of the other stories there about Anthony Cunningham being on the brink of coaching history.
The Mirror goes with Lampard in Blues talks. Chelsea legend in negotiations to replace Sarri at the Bridge. So they've gone with a different angle rather than the Maurizio Sarri might actually be reeled back in by Chelsea angle. But maybe it is all part of a ploy to get Frank Lampard. It is. The more I think about this, the more I think that Frank Lampard kind of has to take this job.
Because it won't come again? It will.
Because it may not come again.
It will, though. It'll definitely come again. It might not come again for him because he might blot his copybook.
Is there part of a sort of novelty value to Frank Lampard as a manager right now, from Chelsea's perspective? That they think, shiny new club legend as a manager is out there, let's go get him. Is there a point that Frank Lampard's veneer, granted it'll take a number of years for it to happen, may just fade a little bit? And then you have other club legends who might come in and, I don't know, like, does Drogba do something big? Like, pick any of the club legends of the last 10, 15 years of Chelsea. They do something big on the continental stage with any football club with a lot of money, and it may not be as impressive as getting Derby to almost the Premier League. Suddenly, the focus shifts. So, from Lampard's perspective, I'm starting to think this might actually be the right move.
Yeah, totally fair. You strike with the irons hot. Slow death of football, Alan Brogan, GAA's big problem, and it's a picture of a very empty-looking Croke Park. An out-of-date t-shirt too there with the 4 in a row, because really the Dubs fans should be printing the 5 in a row t-shirts, right on? Nothing could go wrong, right? Print the 5 in a row t-shirts now.
Well, no, I would say get ahead of it and start printing 6 in a row.
Matt's all right. Seamus fullback rival Doherty on board despite snub. So Seamus Coleman and Matt Doherty still mates, despite the fact that Doherty didn't get a minute's playing time in the 2 games. And Mick McCarthy was defending that, saying he's a great player, I love him, he's a right wing back. Seamus is a better right back than him. Stop asking me these questions.
Finally for me, The Guardian goes with this insane scoreline yesterday. USA 13, Thailand 0. Alex Morgan with 5 goals yesterday. Incredible stuff. Like, the thing is, you look at the minutes of the goal scored. So they go up early, 12 minutes, they're 2-0 up, 20th minute, and then really the second half is just an absolute slaughterhouse. They score as well in the 32nd. But is there not a part of you that you're 3-0 up against Thailand after 32 minutes? You're like, foot off the gas a little bit.
Don't think so. Is there?
Like, did people do that to Panama last summer when they realised that, okay, points are in the bag, let's rest up for a big game? I'm not sure that was the case. Maybe it was. But from this USA team and the way they look at the tournament, and the way the tournament has looked upon them over the past couple of days, is like, USA are not an also-ran, but they're going to be in with the rest. I do wonder if people have got ahead of themselves with that analysis, and that actually this is going to be USA backing up their title from 4 years ago once again, and that perhaps we've overrated the rest of the team. Like, is there any other team in the tournament who'd be able to beat anybody 13-0?
Well, let's wait and see how well Thailand do in the other 2 games before we decide that no one else can do it. Because you wouldn't be surprised now if Thailand brutalised by that ship 8-10. Certainly that's what the spread's going to be for the next couple of games, right?
8-10 spread, that's insanity.
On the rocks, Pebble Beach, not a happy hunting ground for in-form McIlroy, so this is the big question. Can Rory McIlroy do it around Pebble Beach? Probably not, is the answer, but we'll see. Heartache for Lavery as Lady Kaya suffers fatal injury on gallops. Terrible news from the Curragh Gallop yesterday morning. Sheila Lavery has been left heartbroken after the death of stable star Lady Kaya. The County Meath trainer revealed the 1,000 Guineas runner-up broke a leg during her last piece of serious work before Royal Ascot. So the 3-year-old put up a valiant performance behind Hermosa at Newmarket in May and was short as 8-1 for the Group 1 Commonwealth Cup on Friday week. And then Ascot sounds warning of travel chaos. Maybe they're using Dublin Airport. All right, you done?
I'm done.
Do we have an Irish news this morning? We don't have an Irish news this morning. We'll try and bring you that a little bit later on. But it's time for Deal or No Deal.
Good morning, Noel Edmonds.
Hey. Here we go. Very quickly. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola is considering a sabbatical from football at the end of next season if he wins the Champions League. Deal or no deal?
Deal.
No deal.
I'm considering a sabbatical if I win a Tony Award. Like, you just pick your thing, you pick the very highest area of some area you want to succeed in and say, I'm going to quit after that. That makes sense. The only thing is Pep Guardiola is probably closer to the Champions League than I am to a Tony. Not just stick my neck out and saying that. If it happens, of course it's a good deal. Take a break.
I thought that you'd picked a Tony Award because you're ineligible, you've never acted in your life, you're no good at it, you can't actually perform like that, and so it was wild. It was a wild thing that you were picking, in much the same way that Pep Guardiola is saying that we're going to win next season's Champions League because he's not going to be in it. Oh, he'll be in the next one, there'll be the one else that'll be out, is it? Okay, so maybe there's a flaw in my logic.
The last
Therefore
one.
in yours.
Well, obviously, I was my comparison made no sense whatsoever. I just thought of it at the top of my head, so it was a stupid thing to say, really. But maybe, yeah, it'll be their last Champions League before they get brutally kicked out, which, spoiler, will not happen.
I mean, look, just let's play this out, right? Man City learned that they are getting kicked out of the Champions League after the next one. Pep wins that and then rides off into the sunset and leaves the flaming mess behind for Patrick Vieira or Mikel Arteta to fix.
It's beautiful. I can actually see the New York Magazine think pieces already. Pep Guardiola staring out over the Hudson River, being interviewed by a fancy scribe.
Central Park, probably.
Staring out over Central Park, I'll give you that. Thinking about how he brought this team to greatness, and as he stares into the wilderness that is Central Park, Manchester City stare into the wilderness that is a season without European competition. The headline writes itself, the interview writes itself, and sabbatical, absolutely yes to that deal.
Manchester United have made contact with Barcelona over their 31-year-old Croatian midfielder Ivan Rakitic. Deal or no deal?
Deal. 31 years old, screw it, doesn't matter. Still young enough to be an impact player a starter, and make an impact for Manchester United in the starting 11 for the next season or two. Manchester United, if they're going to press the reset button, need to have players like this. They need to have somebody to hold the hand of the youngsters as they come in and become the next, potentially, club legends and stalwarts.
Give me a price.
£35 million.
Barcelona probably don't say no to 35 million quid for 31-year-olds.
They do not say no to that. The thing is, Rakitic, wages, what will he say no to? Can Manchester United get him on the books for 150,000 quid a week? I think they probably will. I think they probably can do that. And I think it is a deal.
You've got a bad agent.
Deal.
Is Jesse Lingard not on 130 grand?
Is he?
I think so.
He's younger though.
Yeah, but like he's Jesse Lingard.
The J Lings brand.
And you're Ivan Rakitic.
There is no Iraq brand or whatever. J Lings comes with his own sense of substance.
Manchester United will have to twice break their record for a defender if they're to sign both Aaron Wan-Bissaka from Crystal Palace and Harry Maguire from Leicester for a combined total of 130 million. Deal or no deal?
You would say deal until you look at the price tag. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, for me, let's take that first of all. Deal. Got to do it. Age profile perfect, 21 years old. You've got two of the best young English fullbacks around in your team. Luke Shaw, I would say Luke Shaw, player of the year for Manchester United.
Yeah, Man United's player of the year.
Luke, don't write off Luke Shaw.
Luke Shaw's finished.
Don't write off Luke Shaw.
Finished.
Don't write off Luke Shaw.
He can't stop eating ice cream. He's a professional athlete and he can't stop eating ice cream.
That was previous Luke Shaw.
No.
New Luke Shaw goes for dairy-free ice cream.
I don't think he does.
Aaron Wan-Bissaka, not sure what his ice cream stance is. I do know his stance on football is playing good, and he is somebody that's worth shelling out loads of money on. We can get back to the Luke Shaw debate on Harry Maguire. Like, I mean, you're talking about Wan-Bissaka and Harry Maguire as a combination, kind of like the combination that saved Liverpool, which is Alisson and Virgil van Dijk. It's not worth that money. It's not worth that money. Manchester United have got stung times in the past by this, but ultimately they need to sign somebody in this position, and everybody in the world knows that. So whoever is going to sell a centre-back to Manchester United can say, just give us an extra 40 million there if you wouldn't mind. Yeah,
so you say deal if you're Leicester, you say no deal if you're Man United, but Man United don't have you. They've got Ed Woodward, and he's like, deal.
Deal all the way for Aaron Wan-Bissaka.
United are interested in signing Norwich City's English defender Max Aarons, who's only 19, if their move for Wan-Bissaka is unsuccessful. Are they both? They're both left backs.
Right backs.
Right backs.
Yeah, like as you say, 19 years old, brilliant season.
Can he play left back? Can he do a Matt Doherty and switch over to the other side?
Not quite sure. The thing is, like as a 19-year-old, you kind of usually get somebody who's flitted in and out of teams, but this guy seems to have like the perfect base to actually make it in the Premier League. Like 41 appearances for Norwich last season, playing week in, week out in an insanely tough division.
If you're his agent, you get that one season in the Premier League under your belt and then you make the transfer, because then you'll have your choice.
I agree. There's also a case study of a couple of other defenders who've made that move while they've got promoted. Hasn't necessarily worked out. One season in the Premier League will do no harm. And of course, Wan-Bissaka has to be their number one target. If that falls through, do you go for him or do you wait for one season? Even from Manchester United's perspective, you might need to do that.
Matthijs de Ligt says he doesn't know what my heart says right now, but he will know when he's on holidays. Somehow he's going to find his heart on holidays. However, his advisors, and this is the newsy bit, have told him to go to a team such as Manchester United, where he's guaranteed starts before moving to Barcelona later on in his career. Deal or no deal, Matthijs de Ligt, from his perspective, to Manchester United.
No deal.
You're not his advisors. They reckon you got to go somewhere lower down in the rung so you get the game time. That's what they're seeing this as an opportunity to get guaranteed starts.
Hey, come and get in our creaky wooden boat here and help us ship some water. That lovely cruise liner over there. You don't need to go there just yet.
There's a sense that because his body of work is so impressive at this point, and that every time he plays for Holland he's going to play beside the best defender in the world and so therefore look great, he'll always have body of work and way out where he played for the Dutch and gone, oh, I'm actually really good. It's just because I had to play beside those clowns at Man United that I look bad, that no matter what happens, he'll be able to take the Man United money and then establish that as his base salary for the next move in 18 months or 2 years, when he's like, oh, it wasn't me, it was the lack of a good central midfielder, it was the nonsensical approach to games that we had, it was the change of manager 3 months after I arrived that caused me to play badly. I'm still a great player. Look at how well I played alongside Virgil.
Liverpool should fly their best advisor to his holiday resort right now, offer him whatever Manchester United are offering, put 20 grand extra on it per week, go to Ajax and put 40 million on top of the price tag, lock down that centre-back partnership for the next 5 years, best in world football, no question.
Did Matip not develop? Did Joe Gomez not develop? Do they not now have strength and depth there in a position where they didn't have?
What is the strength and depth like when you add De Ligt into that? It is
unhappy players.
Some of the best depth we've ever seen.
You get unhappy Gomez and...
But De Ligt and Van Dijk is a better partnership than either of the other two with Van Dijk. It is.
I don't know.
No,
I mean,
it may not be worth the. May not be
De
worth
Ligt was great in 3 or 4 big games, right? But he's still only 19. Let's wait and see. Let's cool the hype train on De Ligt for just a little while and see, is he actually as good as everybody says he is?
But like, what's the difference between Manchester United shelling out big money on Matthijs de Ligt and...
They're absolutely desperate. Liverpool don't have a need at the moment. That's the issue.
Just because you don't have a need doesn't mean you can't get better.
Okay, Real Madrid will do everything they can to sign Manchester United's French midfielder Paul Pogba, as he is Zinedine Zidane's first choice. Deal or no deal?
From Real Madrid? Deal. Let's do this. Let's see Zinedine Zidane prove himself as the Paul Pogba whisperer. Give him what he wants. Give him the money that he requires. Massage that ego day in, day out, because that's essentially what half the job of being Real Madrid manager is. There is no football management. It is just massaging egos. How good are those hands at massaging egos, Zinedine? Very, very good, as we've seen from the previous couple of years.
You make it sound a little bit sensual there, Eoin.
That's just you. That's just you. Apparently, there's going to be a bit of a tug of war here between Florentino Perez and Zinedine Zidane. Perez wants Christian Eriksen.
Get them both.
Zidane wants Pogba.
Get them both.
Who would you prefer?
I'd probably prefer Pogba if I'm Zidane and I have the bank of my football and my knowledge to be able to convince this guy. Look, I had to work hard. I was like, look, this is what I was like here. This is what I was like here. The difference was whatever happened here, and I became the best player in the world. And like, people fall before me now. You have the opportunity to go and do something very special. Second World Cup, a load of Champions Leagues.
You pick Paul Pogba in that situation, and I would not be surprised one bit if they try and make this happen. The thing is, can they make this happen?
I actually think Eriksen might flop at Man United, at Real Madrid. I'm not sure. I think Christian Eriksen is a Spurs player, and I'm not sure he's going to make the step up.
Why?
Don't know. I just feel like he might find the environment too testing. He might find that the game gets ahead of him. He might find that the pressure of being the Billy Big Balls isn't really part of his makeup. I haven't.
Did we say the same thing about Modric? I know it's easy to make that comparison.
I didn't.
It's easy to make that comparison, but
because they're small, blondie-haired dudes from Spurs.
Yeah, exactly. Tick all the boxes.
Very different players. Okay, so have we got one more? Manchester United will look to Ajax's Cameroon goalkeeper Andre Onana, 23, if David De Gea leaves this summer. Do you sell David De Gea and do you sign Andre Onana?
No, you don't sell David De Gea. David De Gea flopped at the end of the season, and that's all it was.
Nah, you sell him, cash in, get the money. You need the money. You've got no money. You wasted all your money. You gave it all to Alexis Sanchez, and he's got wheelbarrows of it going out every week. There's like a Brinks lorry backed up, and then the money goes out, and you're like, what's this money? I need some more money. Give me money.
The last thing they need is just more fluctuation in a position where they've got a player there, and all they need to do is just keep him happy again and just trust him. Like, that's one of the things that I actually agreed with Solskjaer on at the end of last season, was actually putting the trust in David De Gea. Ultimately, it was easy to put your trust in him when things became apparent that Champions League qualification wasn't going to happen, because there wasn't exactly a whole pile of pressure on that decision. David De Gea will bounce back. David De Gea is a better goalkeeper than Onana. So I think
he is, yeah, but you're going to get Onana for what, 30 million, 35 million? You're going to get 100 million, close to it for David De Gea. Is the difference 3 players or 2 players that you can sign? You can sign all those young players that like the 15 and 20 million and re-energise your entire squad for that one player. If you're thinking about it as a football club and running it properly, as opposed to, Bastian Schweinsteiger, people are going to see that name in the team sheet and go, wow.
Unless we're kind of thinking about this whole De Ligt partnership thing all wrong. Maybe De Ligt's best mate is not Virgil van Dijk from the national team. Maybe it's his former club mate Onana. And Manchester United say to De Ligt's agent, listen, you know, the only reason De Ligt was good is he had a great goalkeeper behind him. We've got that goalkeeper.
We're a package deal. One last one. The Spanish champions Barcelona are interested in West Brom's 15-year-old England under-16 striker Louis Barry.
England under-16 striker.
That's what it says here. It says England under-16 striker.
That's funny.
What jersey is that?
I was watching videos of this guy banging in goals earlier on in an Ireland jersey. What is the world coming to that people can change nationality just like that?
Sounds like that. So did he start out with us and then move to them, or did we steal him away?
I think that was him playing for the Ireland under-15s, and he may have played for the England under-16s. So basically, it's all done now, and he's going to go off to Barcelona, it seems.
You should captain for the senior team. Get him on against Gibraltar, what?
Definitely, just secretly call him up. Just Mick McCarthy, call him. Like, he's too young to know who Mick McCarthy is. Like, he was born after Saipan and all that. It's like, hey, it's Mick McCarthy here, and you just hear like some sort of accent that he may not view to be Irish. He'd be like, yeah, what's that? He's like, I'm an international team manager, Louis, come and play for us. He's like, oh, great. And he just shows up, and all of a sudden he's on the pitch and he's wearing a senior green jersey, and then he's Irish.
He was born in 2004.
Born in 2004. Where's my maths gone? Jesus. Wow, that's kind of scary. He literally his life has never crossed over with the first era of Mick McCarthy. That's a depressing thought to end Deal or No Deal on today. It's kind of like when somebody opens the box and they get 1p. That's what this Deal or No Deal episode has ended on.
On that note, Donald McRae, the multi-award winning author of some of the best sports books that have ever been written, joined Eoin in studio recently to talk about his new book, Sunshine in the Shadows, How Boxing Brought Hope in the Troubles. Here's how the conversation went.
Okay, so Donald McRae has got a brilliant new book out. It's called In Sunshine or in Shadow, How Boxing Brought Hope into Troubles. And I'm delighted to say that Donald himself is with us in studio. As you can see, you're very welcome.
Hello, and thank you for having me on.
So, first of all, congratulations. It's a brilliant story, brilliantly written. A number of brilliant stories, I think it's fair to say, intertwined into one general theme about the ray of light that boxing brought to people during the Troubles. When did you first get interested in this theme? What was the thing that sparked your intrigue in the Troubles?
I think I lived in South Africa under apartheid, and it was a time when we had no television because they thought the TV would be a tool of the communists. so kind of bizarre society I grew up in. But we would hear a lot about what was happening in places like Lebanon or Northern Ireland. And certainly at the time of Bobby Sands, who with 9 other prisoners starved himself to death, that was wall-to-wall news in South Africa. So that was my early exposure to Northern Ireland and the Troubles. And of course, Belfast is a quintessential fight city, and I'm a boxing junkie, so I always wanted to visit Belfast. So that's sort of the backdrop to my interest.
What was the sort of feeling you had about Northern Ireland at the time? Was there an automatic, this is very similar to the situation I'm in, or was it, this is vastly different, but there are certain themes that you...
No, I felt it was similar. It echoed that it was a divided society. One was obviously divided on colour, and the other was divided on faith or religion. But of course, I didn't have much intimate knowledge of Northern Ireland. And once I got there, and certainly once I began on this book, it was the human beings who captured me, and I soon stopped thinking about which side they were on. I just saw them as human beings, and they taught me that.
Mm-hmm. Like when I opened this book, I expected to learn a lot about the Troubles via the stories of boxers, but it actually turns out I think I learned a lot more about boxing through the Troubles and the power of boxing, specifically this sport. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's something you'd agree with during the writing process.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's so many examples of how, unlike the politicians or the gunmen, the boxers gave an opportunity for the communities to come together. There was not much going on in Belfast at that time in terms of entertainment, no live gigs, not a lot of music at all. But boxing, a night of amateur boxing, would allow communities to come together, whereas most of the time they would be at war with each other. I found it quite bizarre that boxing is such a violent activity, and yet it had this peacemaking capacity. You know, you couldn't make it up.
It's the great irony of it, and I do wonder if that is one of the reasons why it is this sport specifically that can do it. I think we can generalise sometimes and say sport in general has this great power, but maybe in the specific case of Northern Ireland at this era, boxing was the only thing that was able to do this.
And I think the gunmen allowed boxing some latitude and allowed these fighting men to move from one no-go zone to another because they were besotted with boxing. They admired the hardness of the boxers because it is a violent sport. And I think they would not have given that latitude to, well, they certainly didn't give that latitude to any other sport.
Because they can relate with the idea that you're in conflict, essentially.
Absolutely, they saw themselves as soldiers and fighters, and so they had this immediate kinship with boxers.
On the flip side of that, then, as boxers, it seemed to me all the examples you used in the book, there wasn't a single person that you spoke to or that you heard second-hand information about that went into the boxing ring or saw their end game as a mechanism to stoke sectarian tensions at any point.
They were the antithesis of their total opposites. And many of them suffered enormously. The book opens with a boxer called Charlie Nash, who was a famous boxer, amateur boxer in the 1970s. And unfortunately, he was one of 11 siblings, and the sibling he was closest to was called Willie Nash. And Willie was killed on Bloody Sunday. And of course, Charlie was absolutely devastated when this happened. And the IRA came to him a day later, asked him to join the movement, pick up a gun, and because he was the most famous man in their city, he would have a huge impact. But Charlie, despite being a fighter, is such a gentle soul, and he just said, no, I'm not doing that, because he said, what good will it do me or my family if we kill someone else and make another family suffer? And this echoed again and again, that the boxers were the ones who chose peace, which again is so moving, that they're punching the life out of each other, but extending their hand of friendship to each other at the same time.
Have you ever been able to put your finger on why that is? Why that, with the way they channel it, is able to...
In this particular context, or just with boxers as a whole?
With boxers as a whole, but I guess in the context of this, because it is definitely something that stuck out to me quite a bit, that irony.
Yeah, I think it's because boxers do put their lives on the line. And in this book, it does talk about Barry McGuigan. He killed one of his opponents. They fought in London, and his fists ultimately sent that man to his death. So boxing forces fighters to face their fears and face the damage it can do to you. And I think if you've shared a fight with someone, this is what the fighters say to me, you have an immediate respect and a bond that lasts a lifetime. And I think especially in this context with Northern Ireland, when there was madness all about, there was kneecappings, there was bombings, people were being shot in the head. Boxing was this little oasis that enabled the fighters just to be themselves, and it didn't matter if they lived on the Shanker Road or the Falls Road. They were fighters, and they'd come together to fight, and then they would leave together as joint fighters. And one of the many anecdotes which stood out for me when I was working on the book is that in 1982 there was a fight between Davy Lama, who was a Protestant fighter, and Hugh Russell, who was a Catholic fighter. And they fought in the Ulster Hall the first time, and it was a bloodbath between them. But their fans were there, and the fans were peaceful, supporting their fighter, but no animosity in this hall. But meanwhile, in day-to-day activity, they couldn't mingle together at all. And the fight ended, and Davy Lama, who just lost, he took the victor, Hugh, to hospital. They both had over 30 stitches together, which sort of, for me, summed up the beauty and also kind of the madness of it all.
Yeah, I guess it is very sort of anti the whole Ian Paisley narrative at the time, the pushing the segregation through fighting on the streets. This was pushing integration. Maybe integration is a step too far.
Yeah, absolutely. And someone like Davy Lama, who's a Protestant on the Catholic side, when Ian Paisley would come and shout after there'd been a bomb and about turning the streets full of blood, he just absolutely hated that. And, he would have close friends who were Catholics, and he just despised the politicians. I think most of the fighters, they had little time for the politicians.
Yeah, that's something I want to get into in just a moment with Gerry Storey in particular. But just while you mentioned the fans there a moment ago and the respect they showed on that night, which was such an iconic fight in the context of this story in particular, was that always the way? That the fans would respect that they are two people from opposite communities here?
As far as I can tell, yes, and I worked nearly 4 years on this, and I wasn't given any example where sometimes there would be decisions which went against a fighter who he felt that perhaps if he was fighting in Dublin and he came from the Shanker Road, sometimes the judges might go for the home fight. And that's typical boxing shenanigans, nothing more than that. But no, I think it has always been the way, and it just certainly in the professional game, there was quite a long time in the 1970s when there was no professional boxing in Belfast because there was too much violence, and it was only in the early 80s that started coming back into the fore again.
Because that was one of the things that I was really wondering about to what extent did the behaviour of the people in the ring actually project to the audience, and how long lasting was that impact? That on the night they could get on?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was quite careful not to make any claims. The subtitle is How Boxing Gave Hope. It's not about how boxing changed anything, because I think the change was on individual people and certainly saved fighters' lives in the sense that they did not pick up a gun. But I can't claim that it eased the troubles. It just was a fleeting moment where, for one night, when the communities came together, but then the next morning the divisions were as fierce as ever, unfortunately.
For sure. And Gerry Storey was one of the central figures in all of this. Why was he the man who could cross the divide?
Well, he's a lovely, lovely man, and I often said to him, "How could you do this?" And he'd come out, "Oh, I walk with the angels, and nothing's ever going to touch me." But actually, it's much more than that. Both sides, the leaders of both sides saw him as a man who was doing good for each community, and he would just be allowed to move from the New Lodge, which is in Republican turf in Belfast, to the Shanker Road to work with fighters. And one of the key moments was in 1972 when things were at their darkest. That was the worst year, when most people died that year. And he got a message saying that the boys on the Shanker Road wanted to see him. And the way they said the boys, that meant the big guys. And they said, "Oh, well, we'll send in an escort for you." And he said, no, I'll walk to the Shankill, I know it well. And so he walked to the Shankill on a Sunday night, not quite sure what the boys were going to say to him. The minders are waiting for him, they're taking him up this staircase, and when he gets in there, 12 men waiting for him. He says, "Good evening, fellas." And eventually they say, "We know what you're doing." And there's a pause, and he's thinking, this could go one of two ways, and maybe not so good. But the next sentence was, "And we like what you're doing. We want you to continue." could you actually get your wee boxers from Catholic New Lodge to come fight on the Shankill Road, which is kind of a phenomenal thing. And he said to me, why could only boxing do this? Why couldn't other people see the logic and the decency of just coming together? So, he's an amazing person.
That's obviously a rhetorical question. Did Gerry Storey himself have any answer to that himself? Why could boxing do this?
I think he just feels, certainly amateur boxing, professional boxing is full of corruption and lies, but he feels amateur boxing is still a haven of decency, and he thinks, the boxers are honest people and they just want to get better as fighters, and he says by making them better fighters, he feels he can make them better people.
He must have been an extremely persuasive or an extremely trustworthy character. You spent a lot of time with him. You tell a great anecdote about the East Germans coming to Belfast to fight, and he had to work pretty hard to persuade everybody that things were going to be okay.
Yeah.
Given, especially when you're on the outside looking in, how paranoid you might have been. Paranoid is putting it way too strongly. Yeah. A reasoned decision to say we might not go to the city given the current state. How did Gerry Storey behave to be able to change those persuasions?
It's a good question because, if we take that particular incident when West Germany came to fight Ireland on the Shankill Road. Now, Ireland are going to wear the green of Ireland with the shamrock on their vests. That colour and that symbol normally on the Shankill Road would be anathema, and it would lead to someone possibly being shot. But he convinced the boxing officials in Dublin that it would be a good idea for West Germany to fight Ireland on the Shankill. But just a couple of weeks or before the event was about to happen, there was the Le Mans bombing, where I think about 10 or 12 people died. So the boxing officials in Dublin understandably said, obviously, this match is off. We cannot have the West Germans going onto the Shankill. He said, no, it'll be fine. And they said, how do you know? He said, just believe me. All the leaders have said it's going to be safe. The East Germans will be safe. My boys will be safe. There'll be no violence. I don't think he had any proof, but he just had this blind faith. And I think it was because he'd met the Loyalist Council and they had assured him that his work was valued by them. And that night went off so peacefully. And the British soldiers said afterwards they'd never known such a quiet night as the night West Germany fought Ireland on the Shankill Road. Could we have another one just to perpetuate the peace? So I think he just has this manner. He's so charming and he allows people just to be themselves. And so amid the carnage of what was happening, he allowed people to do unusual things in that context.
You mentioned his discussions there, and you tell that great story of him meeting loyalists and trying to, persuade other people that things are going to be safe. And ultimately, it always seemed to me that as long as he was the person walking the walk, it was never going to be any problem. He had full faith in himself. To what extent did that waver at all when he went into the maze, when he goes into the H blocks? It seems that was quite a taxing few months and few years for him.
That was the time, he could talk about assassination attempts on his life and just make it seem as if it was no big deal. But he actually got quite upset when he spoke to me about the maze, because he said that was a time when the jail actually got into his head. And he was working with both sides, going on a Tuesday to work with the Loyalists, the UDA, UVF prisoners, and on a Thursday with the RA prisoners. But he said it just actually, the mentality of a jail is such that it takes over your psychology. And after about 6 months, his wife said to him, for the sake of us as a family and for your own mental health, you need to pull back. So that was the only time where I think it got a bit much for him. But still, even in that time, in those 6 months, he did wonderful work. And the two sides in adjoining cages shared equipment with each other, started communicating over the walls, sort of saying, how are you boys doing in there? Which, unbelievable that he could do that.
It kind of felt, though, at times he was almost a prisoner who went home every evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Because he would see these young men and they're all in for life, and he would feel what a waste. And I think it was that was the only time I think the sadness got to him, because he felt that these people had wasted their lives on a futile cause. But otherwise, he's such a positive, optimistic person.
And ultimately, that's why he's brought into the maze in the first place, isn't it? Because the Loyalists don't trust anybody else to actually bring them the happiness that boxing can bring them. It has to be Gerry. It has to be him and his methods.
And what is so bizarre about that is that his family are steeped in the Republican movement, and his nephew was often was in the maze at the time for having, done stuff for the IRA. But yet the loyalists still wanted him. He was handpicked by them because they knew he was the best boxing trainer and the most fair person in Belfast. And he said to me he would only have gone into the maze if he could have worked with both sides, which again says a lot about him.
And it says a lot as well, I think, from my reading of it, about his methods, that he could almost teach discipline in a non-military way.
Yeah, because a lot of these guys saw themselves as soldiers, and they had this idea of again, the violent idea, but he would do it in a much more gentle manner. And he even persuaded the governor of the maze to get in colour televisions, which back in 1981 in the maze jail, it was not something that could be expected, but he charmed the governor even so that the prisoners loved him because he'd be showing them boxing movies on colour TV. And there's so many other moments he shared with me which made me just think, what a special man.
Yeah, and the training and the sport itself and the way they channel that, I don't think it was a channeling of anger, because again, that could be a very one-dimensional pre-book reading of this all. It's like the Troubles inspired so many boxers because everybody was angry, everybody was furious at what they were going through. I don't think that was the case.
No, he loves the science of boxing, and the art and science of boxing is that hit and not be hit. So he would teach them that, and he'd have what he called a sling, where the prisoners would sort of do exercises underneath it. So it wasn't all about pummeling the heavy bag or pummeling another prisoner in the face. It was discipline, but it was done in an engaging manner.
And I guess that's why you could say that Charlie Nash reacted in a more civilised way than he might have done. Like Davy Larmer as well could have become a very vengeful person.
Because Davy's father had been blown up. He survived, but he was never the same again in a car bomb. And one of the gunmen came over and said, Davy, we know who did this to your dad, and they can be blown away. And again, Davy said, but what good is that going to do for me or my dad? And why foist anguish onto another family? So all of them, just echo this again and again.
There were a number of attempts on Gerry Storey's life. Why was that? Did you ever get to the bottom of that?
Yeah, he said to me that he knows that it wasn't officially ordered by any leaders because the leaders believed that he was doing good work. But there would always be someone in the movements who would think, we don't like this peaceful message that this boxing trainers. So they would sort of take it on their own whim to see if they could kill him. And it's significant that all the assassination attempts happened in the docks of Belfast, not out in public, because if it had been in public, the people attempting to kill him, they would have been bumped off. So they did it in anonymity in the docks, and they would plant bombs under his forklift truck because he was a forklift guy. He'd move goods all over the docks, and he had a lot of luck that either he or colleagues of his saw the shape under the forklift. So I think it was just individual, even though the movements themselves endorsed his work and said anyone who touches him will be severely dealt with, which meant killed. There were just these individuals who clearly just did not like his peaceful message.
Yeah, it's remarkable. He's an unbelievable man, as I'm sure you can attest to more than pretty much anybody else. Like, you've obviously been up there fairly recently. The book is brand new, as I said at the top. Like, how has the role of boxing changed in Belfast since then, in the current climate? How big a role does it now play in the communities?
Well, it's a fight city, and there's nothing quite like a fight night in Belfast. It still has the same magnetism, but I think its social impact perhaps is not quite as important, because although things are a little tense at the moment with a lot going on politically, it's not like it was in the Troubles. So I think it still has a lot of good, and the Holy Family Gym continues, and this 83-year-old man, he's there 5 nights a week, and you've got boys and now girls, sort of between the ages of 8 and 18, and he's working with them. And he still swears by the work he's doing, that it's maybe keeping them off drugs and out of gangs, So boxing still has a huge healing power, I think, in Belfast.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way, and we've been on top of that as well over the last couple of weeks. Andy Lee was up with you.
Yeah, we had quite a special day, and Andy had known Gerry Storey for many years, but he had no idea that he was doing all this kind of political work behind the scenes, and he was sort of saying, well, you never told me this. And he would say, well, Andy, we were talking about boxing, this was just other stuff. So yeah, it was special to share that day with Andy.
Yeah, and that video is coming very shortly as well. You'll be able to check it out on our YouTube channel. It's called In Sunshine or in Shadow, How Boxing Brought Hope into Troubles, and it is absolutely brilliant. Donald McRae, thanks a million for popping in.
Thanks so much, Eoin.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online, and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
All right, you're very welcome back, and we will be bringing that Donald McRae and Andy Lee visit to Belfast anytime, any day now. So stay tuned to our social channels for that. Pardon me. You can get us on youtube.com/offtheball, or of course you can leave us any comments by just using the hashtag OTB AM. We'll pick that up and bring it to air very soon. Now, John Duggan has joined us to help us preview what's going to happen at Pebble Beach. How are you?
Gerry and Eoin, good morning. Great.
What's going to happen at Pebble Beach?
We're going to have a brilliant golf tournament that's going to be really exciting for viewers in Ireland on TV sets.
Go on, what else? Why would it be particularly exciting for Irish golfers, Irish golf fans?
Well, I think we've got three lads in the mix. Rory, Sheahan and Graham McDowell are all playing well. We've got Tiger Woods.
G-Mac hasn't played well in about 4 years, and then he puts a good week together the week before the Open, goes back to Pebble Beach just to qualify for the Open on his home course. It's all a bit mad, but it's how golf works in that he just shoots into contention, he shoots level par 4 days and wins, and everybody's like, that came from nowhere.
It's happened before. Horses for courses has happened before. The players have won. Andy North won US Opens 7 years apart and only won one other tournament. So he'll have a huge degree of freedom, Graham McDowell. He's got nothing he'll just play a complete freedom, and even if he's in contention, he knows what to do. Also, he played very well at the Olympic Club up the road in California in 2012, very similar course to Pebble.
Right. So is he an outsider?
No.
What is he? What odds are
G-Mac? It's funny, you go through the racing post here. Graham McDowell is 100 to 1. So they've got, this really is, it is the Bible, as I would call it, the Bible, the Bible. Steve Palmer, the Racing Post, and Jeremy Chapman with their amazing previews today, and all the odds and all the tee times. It really is. Even just opening the newsprint this morning, it's just the profiles of that person. What do they agree with what I'm saying? Yeah, okay.
So when you're looking at an Open, is it different from other tournaments where form into the tournament is more important than form around the track? I'm talking about the US Open here because it's such a weird, peculiar event and has been down over the years in terms of outsiders, and then occasionally you get the best golfer in the field winning by 8 or 9 strokes.
Yeah, or Tiger 15. I think that the problem with the US Open, Gerry and Eoin, in sizing it up, is that they've been tricking up the course in recent years. Chambers Bay, it was a mess. The putting greens were awful. Shinnecock Hills got out of control with the wind last year. But also in the past, you've also had very, very brutal courses like Winged Foot and Oakland Hills, where it's just completely, if you don't drive the ball straight, you're in Vietnam jungle and trying to get the ball out. So you've had some strange winners that have not been able to, most of the players, the top players in the world, are probably better with their second shots, their approaches, their iron play. Who are the best players in the world? Tiger Woods or any else, generally better iron players. So the brutality of the rough, you get a good bounce or a bad bounce into the rough, you might get a good lie or you might get a bad lie, and then that creates a mental challenge for players, and then you have the winners like Steve Jones, Michael Campbell, strange kind of winners. So I think even going into this week, the rough apparently at Pebble Beach is very, very heavy. They haven't tricked up the greens. The greens are perfect. The wind is a huge defence of the course, but it's not going to be that breezy apparently for the first 2 days. The last 2 days it will be breezy. So But also, you do get quality marquee winners like Jack, Tom Watson have both won at Pebble Beach. Tiger won there. Graham McDowell, you can't say he was a no-hoper when he won. And Dustin Johnson on the final day was 3 shots clear at the time. So I just think with the Masters, we generally know that you need a lot of experience to win at Augusta, and the field is limited. With the British Open or Open Championship, generally it favours players that play well on links courses, and you generally get trends regarding that. The US Open can be a bit more random.
We did say after the most recent major that Brooks Koepka was essentially going to be favoured for every major for the next 18 months. He's not even favoured for the next major. He's
that's because, as we established yesterday, it's not a course for a beefcake like Brooks, and hitting that's the issue I have with some of the discourse around Pebble Beach. It's like, long hitters aren't exactly favoured by this. But you can favour yourself sometimes by being a long hitter. Just because you're a long hitter, you're not going to be at a disadvantage going into Pebble Beach.
No, what it does, it brings the other players that are not bombers into the equation.
But I think it's too simplistic to just say Brooks Koepka is, and I know you're not saying that, but just to suggest that he's a long hitter and that's it. I mean, when you talk about ridiculous rough that's tough to negotiate, I mean, we saw the same thing at Bethpage Black. Like, this is a similarity we share in the last 2 majors. I think, once again, we're writing off Brooks Koepka, not writing him off.
But he won at Shinnecock Hills. Shinnecock Hills is a windy course, and he won there last year. So
he stands a hell of a chance this weekend.
I think the reason why you'd be writing him off is mentally he began to fade in the final 9 of the Bethpage Black, where his you could just feel that it was beginning to toll. And I'd wonder, just from a freshness point of view, is the only reason I'll be saying that Brooks Koepka can't win this week.
So Dustin Johnson is favourite, best price about 9s, but generally about 8. Rory McIlroy is as short as 8 in places, best price 9. Brooks Koepka generally 8 9s, but there is some 10 to 1 available about him. Tiger Woods, biggest price 13 to 1. And then after that you get into Patrick Cantlay, Jordan Spieth, Justin Rose, Xander Schauffele, Ricky Fowler, John Rahm, and they're all big prices. So no one knows what's going to happen here.
Will I give my tips?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so I don't know if you've got the image on the screen, the first image, what I'm doing here. Okay, so, well, that's the secondary image, actually. So these are the outsiders that I picked. There we go. Here we go. Okay, so
you're wedded to Ricky Fowler. You love yourself a bit of Ricky Fowler in the majors.
I do, yeah, but he's not my headline tip. My headline tip is Jordan Spieth. Right, I'm spending €50 here. You can do a virtual €50, or you can minus your. You can reduce your stakes by 10% and do €5. So Jordan Spieth, right, has got the X factor in golf. He's got a great record at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, where he won in 2017. I was researching this last night. Players who've got a good record around Pebble Beach, even if it's softer in February. 3rd at the PGA, 8th at the Colonial, 7th at the Memorial of recent times. Grittier competitor than anybody. Saw that at Birkdale with my own eyes. Coming back into form, Jordan Spieth always finds a way, and I think at 22 to 1, I think his value with the bookmaker I chose, which is going a fifth of the odds, the first 8 places. Ricky Fowler for 7 each way. From this €50, 28 to 1, said he found something at the Memorial Tournament with his swing that will help him this week at Pebble Beach. A Goodwin player from the west coast of California, has won in Phoenix this year, 8 major top 5s. Of course, he's a bridesmaid, but that's factored into a 28 to 1 price. I think we're looking in golf sometimes for players that may peak next, whereas at the moment, everybody's saying, well, Patrick Cantlay can win this week. But Patrick Cantlay, the value is gone. The time to get Patrick Cantlay was before the Memorial Tournament.
Okay, so what is Cantlay's arm? He's looking for prices on him.
Cantlay is about 18 to 1. Like, Cantlay for most majors this year will be 40s, 50s. What you want to be doing with Patrick Cantlay is, and I do really rate what he does, you back on Patrick Cantlay for the US Open in January, not this week. Now you're looking for the players like Spieth and Fowler who would have been generally 16 to 1 for this type of tournament, and they're going out in price now because of the narrative about other players.
Okay. So they're your headline bets. It's,
4 golfers. There's 2 of them.
Yeah. Okay, who's next?
The other 2 we got on the screen there. Brandt Snedeker, the man who cries after he doesn't win a major. 50 to 1 for the Tennessee native. Brandt Snedeker won the AT&T twice at Pebble Beach. One of the best putters in the world. Love these Poa Anu greens, top 10s. in the US Open in 2010, was last held here at Pebble Beach. 5 top 10s in the US Open, and he did 60 in Canada last week, so he's coming into form. Great putter, Bernd Schnedeker, and I think he could contend. And lastly, you got to have a bit of patriotism about it. Although you got to take patriotism and emotion out of betting, but I do actually believe that Shane Lowry does have a chance this week for 4-year each way, 66-1 for a top 8 finish. Should have won at Oakmont, the toughest course in the US Open Road to 2016. 8th at the PGA, likes links golf, which is linksy at Pebble Beach. A lot of experience at the course. He's played there a lot of times on the PGA Tour. 2nd in Canada last week. Played well at Hilton Head, which also has small greens, like Pebble Beach, after the Masters, which is a bit of a flop. And he was saying in the interviews this week that he decided, you know what, when I was missing the cut of the Masters, I started to play with freedom. We're talking about GMAC there. And it seems to have worked for him. Of course, he won in Abu Dhabi earlier this year. He's going to get his tour card for next season. I think it's a huge thing for Shane Lowry. And I think he could go close this week.
Okay, so Lowry at 66, a small bet on Bernd Schnedeker, and then slightly chunkier bets on Ricky Fowler and also on Jordan Spieth.
Yourselves?
Spieth.
That was pretty
Why?
convincing.
Brooks is your boy.
Brooks is my boy. Brooks is the man. Brooks is the GOAT, except for Tiger. But Brooks is the greatest amongst men. But sometimes you have to feel the fallibility that even the greatest can feel. And Brooks Koepka may well feel that this week. I do think he has a hell of a chance. But from what I've read this week, it seems it's going to be Spieth's week. It seems that the course is made for Jordan Spieth. It seems it's made for somebody who can navigate their way around in a manner that isn't showing off their muscles and just booming the ball down the middle of the fairway, which my buddy Brooks does so well. Jordan Spieth to win.
Gerry, you?
I don't know. I mean, so why did Dustin Johnson not win when GMAC won?
He lost his mind. He shot an 85 in the final day, and he lost his. Like he was getting into the rough early, and then he was taking too quick a time to get to. He didn't compose himself effectively.
Right.
Now he's won around the track since, but I was very disappointed by him. He put the foot on Koepka's throat, metaphorically, in the back nine of the PGA, and then he made 2 bad errors. He made an error from the fairway on the closing stretch there. He really had a chance to put the pressure on Koepka, and he faltered, and he did 3-putt at Chambers Bay. Dustin Johnson should have won 5 majors by now. I just worry a little bit about his mental capacity at the end of major championships. Also, didn't play very well last week.
Is there anybody we don't have doubts about when it comes to their mentality in
Tiger Woods?
Tiger Woods, Koepka, obviously. But there's so many questions about Dustin Johnson, obviously, so many questions about Rory McIlroy.
Also when he's back, when he's in form or when he's not in the doldrums, Spieth to me has proven it. And he did that at Birkdale when he was collapsing, because he was collapsing after the Masters collapse, and then he came back and beat Matt Kuchar. Matt Kuchar is somebody who definitely doesn't have it, and he doesn't deserve to either, given his recent behaviour. But there's 2 great storylines here, of course. Tiger Woods didn't seem physically fit at the PGA coming off the Masters, and has tuned up, had a very good performance at the Memorial, 7 under par through 12 in one of his rounds. Is the best iron player of all time. Won by 15 shots, as we talked about in 2000, but also in 2010, when he was going through all that hassle around scandal and all that, he was close contending to win. So Tiger Woods actually is not bad value, really, when you think about it. And Phil Mickelson turns 49 on Sunday, and has never won the US Open. He's been 6 times second, and he's won all the other majors, so that would be a great storyline if Phil won.
So Phil's eligible for the Seniors Tour this time next year? Yeah, which is quite amazing. But I think we've got a very deep field now in golf. We got John Rahm, we got Justin Thomas is a great golfer, but just a bit rusty because he come back off a wrist injury. Xander Schauffele has come out of nowhere. Adam Scott has resurgent. Jason Day, I think, has got Steve Williams on the bag now. Right.
Jason Day, who's got a good record. It's a Tommy Fleetwood for the English story. Molinari, we've almost forgotten about. Justin Rose, we're talking about a quality field. We're talking about quality players. That's why it's probably less likely than we have our mad winners than we would have had in the past of the US Open.
Yeah, you shouldn't really.
So somebody's running to the bookies right now with tenure in their hand, and they have the slip written, Rory McIlroy to win the US Open. Are you telling them to put that €10 back in their wallet?
No, I'm not. But I kind of think to myself, what it doesn't really suit Rory is the course. Every course should suit Rory if Rory is meant to be one of the best players of his generation. It shouldn't be just all about hitting it really high on soft courses. He did win a Hoylake, he did win a British Open there. So I think with Rory recently, as we spoke yesterday, it's mainly been about more his mental preparation. Hasn't been that in sync. He hasn't been necessarily tuned up and free. Freedom, I think, is the big thrust of what I'm saying here.
But he's so streaky. He's in a streak, as he was on Sunday. Like, these streaks tend to continue.
They do, and with Rory they tend to continue.
It'd be shocking if McIlroy didn't play well this week. I would be absolutely stunned if he doesn't play well.
Yeah, so I wouldn't put anybody off having a bet on Rory. And tee to green, like, it's not all links. Half of the track is parkland. With Rory, though, I think a fast start is important. But he did win a Kawhi Island, which is linksy, and that's a PGA. He won that by 8 shots. So
I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play well this weekend.
Would you not?
No, it's Rory McIlroy. He just sometimes randomly throws up a great performance, sometimes randomly throws up a terrible performance.
There's always like it's never 1 week on its own. The good performances are never an island of a week. It's always like a sustained 3-4 week burst.
But it's been a sustained season. 10 top 10s, won the Players' Championship and won in Canada. Disappointed at the Memorial and the Masters, but apart from that, he's been very, very solid, Rory McIlroy, this year.
What about the USPGA?
But he still finished in the top 10, just didn't start well. If Rory McIlroy starts well...
I wonder if that top 10 finish, maybe I'm being extremely harsh here, but did that top 10 finish kind of come as a result of Rory kind of falling into the top 10 when, all right, the game's up, I'm not going to win this, play my own game, pressure's off?
Probably too rusty, didn't play the week before, should have played the week before. I would agree with Gerry that he does go through streaks of brilliance, and maybe he's on that streak, but does the course... Like if it was just a longer, more traditional US Open course, actually, where it was actually fairways and greens, where it wasn't tight, which Pebble Beach is a little bit tight, small greens, scrambling, wind. If it was winged foot, if it was, as I said, Oakmont or one of these traditional courses, then Rory would be a better favourite. He'd be a 5-1 shot. That's why he's an 8 or a 9-1 shot in my view. Also, it's a really, really talented field.
He's top of the money list. 6.7 million this year already in prize money. Paul Casey, number 7 in the world at the moment. Number 7 on the PGA Tour money list. $3.5 million.
Great record at Pebble Beach, Paul Casey.
It's June. Like, he's already made $3.5 million and it's only June.
We're in the wrong job.
That's not bad. We played in the Pro-Am with Paul Casey in Carton House.
How much did he get for that?
Was that the year he won it?
Yeah. He was 66-1, I think, because his form was terrible. I only backed him after the end of the first round as opposed to backing him that day, but got him at about like 20-something.
What's he like to play around the golf with?
It was really good crack, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
In what way, sort of?
Nice, because he had a reputation for being a little bit kind of taciturn, and then it turned out he was the complete opposite of that. He was actually a really good guy.
How do you play when you're in the company of Paul Casey?
I played quite well, actually.
Did you, yeah?
Yeah.
So you thrive under the pressure. You're not like Rory. You wouldn't fade away and then roar back to contend for a top 10. You'd kind of lead from the front if you had his set of talents.
That's it, lead from the front, yeah.
We're going to do an article, offtheball.com. We'll go through the kind of rationale for all these tips and maybe a couple of other nuggets that I've seen. So do check that out today and tomorrow, offtheball.com. It's a later start because it's California, so a later start will be tomorrow afternoon when they start the US Open at Pebble Beach.
Paul Casey's 55s. Is that worth an each way?
Like you can really get into quicksand on these kind of golf tournaments. I generally would.
I did the last couple of quick tournaments, so
pick one or two, go with it.
I would generally limit it to 4 for
or that.
You could do trades for first round leader, this kind of thing. Like Kevin Streelman, I was desperate to see if he was in this because he's got such a good record around Pebble Beach, but he's not in the tournament. Like players like Brian Stewart, a really good iron player that I would notice, and then you get like really in depth into the study of him, and then you get sucked into it, and then you end up losing 20 quid in it. That's the kind of the danger of these kind of things. So that's why I generally decide, okay, I'm going to limit it to 4 and keep it at that. And sometimes limit it to 1 if I've got a very strong view. But it's hard to have a strong view in the US Open.
All right, John, good stuff.
All right, guys.
Thanks very much for that. We're getting into the power rankings up next. Before that, though, This is something that we're very much looking forward to. It's the trip of a lifetime. It's the very first ever Off the Ball Open. We're headed to Abu Dhabi for some winter sun in November. It's from the 17th to the 23rd. You've got to pay your deposit in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a Peter Lorre golf clinic, 5 nights in a 4-star hotel, a gala dinner, and of course a world famous OTB roadshow. It's taking place this November the 17th to the 23rd in Abu Dhabi, and you can sign up now and go and pay your deposit offtheball.com/open. Special guests Kevin Caban, Kieran Donaghy, Peter Lorre and more. And you get to play 2 of the best golf courses in the planet. That's Yaz Links and the National. It's the very first ever Off the Ball Open this November. Get on to offtheball.com/open. Paul McGinley was on Off the Ball last night. Here he is saying that he thinks there's reason to be hopeful about Rory McIlroy this week.
I've seen it all year, Joe, to be honest, and having followed him and watched him closely, I see a huge improvement in his performance level this year, not just in terms of his results, but in his performance throughout the bag. And his wedge play has got a lot of criticism over the years, and me included last year. His distance control was nowhere near where it needed to be. Since this introduction of Brad Faxon, I'll go back to it again, I've been harping on about it now for quite a while. He's got a different approach to the game. He's looked at what's important in terms of scoring. His putting has gone to another level. He put it unbelievably last week, the bit that I saw, and also statistics wise you can see that. His wedge play, his chipping, these things have all really gone to another level. It's not often now that you see him really hit a bad wedge shot. In fact, he hits a number of really good wedge shots, and I don't know if you watched the golf last week, but the way he dismantled that first hole to get off to a fast start, particularly at the weekend, and he had tricky pitch shots in on both occasions, and he damn near holed both of them. And these were from 60, 70 yards over bunker, not a lot of green to work with. That's a lot of confidence, it's a lot of skill, and it's also a lot of practice to be able to execute those, something he hasn't done in the past. So yes, he's always been a long straight driver, and that's always been an element to him, but the real reason why he's gone to another level in the last few months and why he dominated is the difference in his short game.
All right, more of that good stuff available wherever it is that you get your podcasts on Golf Weekly. Now, it is time for us to get to the most contentious slot in Irish media. It is Eoin Sheahan's Power Rankings. We've got no Dave McIntyre here to act as a buffer this week. He's out in a limb with opinions that nobody but a mother could love. It's Eoin Sheahan.
Thank you very much. I think it's time to roll out the red carpet. The stately music, which we can hear, kind of is becoming of the regal nature of these power rankings. Not my decision. I think the people asked that it got marked with such a theme, and it's going to be a big week. I saw Jake O'Donnell, who wrote our article last week, described my power rankings as piping hot. Hot as a chimney, you might say. Hot as a steam train, you might say. Can I get a steam train sound effect? Yeah, there you go. Eventually, I can kind of feel the earth moving beneath my feet. I can almost feel an earthquake coming on. I'm sure there's going to be an earthquake sound effect there. Let's kick this off. Here's at number 33 at the very bottom of the list, New York, as ever, right at the bottom. Just in front of them, then we got London down 1 at 32. They were beaten by 10 points by Offaly last weekend in round 1 of the qualifiers. In 31 then, we've also got Wexford, who are down 1 place. They got absolutely pulled apart by Derry on a 4-16 to 10-point scoreline at the weekend, so they're down to 31. Then we get into number 30, one of the biggest droppers of the week. Waterford down 5 after their destruction at the hands of Westmeath. We've got Wicklow at 29, down 3 because they were beaten by Leitrim. Leitrim, nowhere to be seen here yet. They may be one of the biggest risers, TBC. At 28, we got a non-mover in Sligo, yet to play after they were hammered by Galway in Connacht. Limerick, also a non-mover. They're yet to play after they were knocked out of Munster in pretty emphatic fashion by Cork a couple of weeks ago. We've got another dropper here in Carlow, down 2 places after Longford beat them by, 10 points in the end at the weekend. Carlow back to where they belong, some might say. Some will say they're pretty harshly treated to be 26. I say 26 is perfect. Louth, down 4 to 25. They were beaten 2-16 to 111 at the weekend by Antrim of all people. Louth, the big shock for them
Hang your heads in shame.
Hang your heads in shame, Louth, letting my power rankings down by getting beaten like that. Also,
what happens if Antrim beat Kildare this week? How far would you drop Kildare?
Substantially.
To beside Louth?
They might never ever see the light of day ever again. They might never appear on the power rankings. At 24, the biggest risers this week, Antrim at 24. 2-16 to 111, as I say, against Louth. An incredible scoreline, an incredible result at the weekend. I got it completely wrong with Antrim, and I'd like to apologise to all the people of Antrim. I'm extremely sorry. Everything else is completely correct, but I'll admit that Antrim I was wrong about. Apology. They're 24.
Apology accepted.
23, we've got Tipperary. They got knocked out of the championship, non-mover.
Should you not move them down? I mean, come on.
Below Antrim?
Well, they're gone now. I mean, they've gone way earlier than we thought they would. They didn't perform up to their level. They should be punished for that.
Their level, I would have said, would have been higher than 23. So they're below their level of 23. It's punishment enough seeing them outside the top 20 for a team that held their own for a while in Division 2, obviously got relegated. But they'll drop further over the coming years. You can be, if you hate
coming years,
like you hate Tipperary so much, I get that.
I don't. I love the Tipperary footballers.
The bone of contention every single week has been Tipperary.
Are you a complete rookie?
Are you a complete rookie? Exactly. Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Lance, for popping that in there. We can
2 pricks on the list. Finally, makes sense. Go on.
We can just call this the Dunce Corner, and it's just you reacting to my list.
Come on.
22. We've got Leitrim up 7. Oh, a huge rise for Leitrim as well. They beat Wicklow at the weekend, kind of backing up their league form. Offaly then at 21. They beat London, as we've already established, by 10 points the weekend.
Who did Leitrim beat?
Wicklow.
So Leitrim are behind Offaly.
Yeah.
Offaly beat
London.
And where's Wicklow to Offaly? Where's Wicklow to London?
Wicklow are 29, London are 32. Not that much of a difference.
Leitrim beat a better team than Offaly and are behind them.
That's one game. Tell me how Leitrim got on against Roscommon, Ger.
Why were Offaly already in the qualifiers? Who beat them?
Offaly were already in the qualifiers because Meath narrowly beat them by 2 points. Leinster finalists Meath, who've crushed all before them since stumbling over the line against Offaly. Offaly at 21 up 1. Longford a non-mover at 20. They beat Carlow easily enough at the weekend. Kind of nowhere for them to go at the moment. Clare are down 2, which is unfortunate. They didn't play at the weekend, but it's because of a couple of risers.
Longford are ahead of Clare. They are.
Why?
Because they're a better team. They've been a coherent entity in the championship so far this season. They're better than Clare.
Why are you judging your entire worldview of Clare football based on one summer? And their summer isn't even over yet.
One summer.
This
is one summer. This is the whole thing. One game.
One summer. Why are you judging things just on what we've seen over?
The power rankings of where the teams are now.
Yeah, are you a complete rookie?
Where the teams are now.
Are you a complete rookie?
Thank you, Lance.
Are you a complete rookie?
Oh
Thank you, Lance. I appreciate people actually stepping in and kind of telling you what's what at this point. Laois down 4, kind of part of movements up from other people, but also because they got hammered by Meath. And according to Tommy, who was in studio yesterday, who was at that game, said it was like a challenge game, and they still got beaten by 11 points by Laois, or by Meath, I should say. Derry are up 2. They were the team that hammered Wexford. They're up to 17. And then Down are also up 2. They're at 16 after they beat Tipperary at the weekend. A good result for them and a very tricky test for Mayo to go to them in Newry on Saturday week. Westmeath then are up 1. A result they expected to get against Waterford. Keeping them to 7 points though was encouraging. So Down was Clare, Down was Laois, Derry, Down, Westmeath are all rising. There will be another riser coming soon. Fermanagh also down 1 after getting knocked out of the championship. A little bit harsh, as I was saying yesterday. They lost to Donegal, they lost to Monaghan. They were 2 games they expected to lose. That was their championship. It is unfair. 14 is where they are at the moment. They could drop further. Kildare are down 1 as well. They're at 13. They got destroyed by Dublin at the weekend. Again, something we expected, so it's not something that's going to punish them too much. At 12 though, I think it's time to say this. Cork are the 12th best team in the country. Hammered Limerick in their only championship game to date. The Munster final will be a good one this year.
So they went up this week without doing anything?
Yeah, well, no, because Kildare got beaten by Dublin. Fermanagh got beaten and knocked out of the championship. And you also had Laois plummeting down the rankings. So, naturally, Cork are up to 12. This is your real bone of contention now, 11 and 10. Non-mover 11, Armagh. Non-mover 10, Meath. Will you accept that I was right?
No.
That Meath are better than Armagh?
No, let's wait and see them play. So you're saying Meath would beat Armagh in a game of football if they played?
Very narrowly, yeah.
Well, we'll see. And who's 9?
9 is Monaghan, down 1. At least I'm man enough to actually stand up and say, listen, I may have been wrong about having Monaghan in my top 8 over the last couple of weeks, something that you personally gave me stick about.
Yeah,
but I went away.
In there.
I went away, I kind of read a few books, had a bit of a wander, kind of looked out beyond the horizon, and I was like, should Monaghan be in the top 8? And the answer was no, they shouldn't be. So they're down to 9. No, I don't want to say they stumbled against Fermanagh. They got a good win against Fermanagh at the weekend. They could rise again. We're not riding off this season for Monaghan just yet, but that Cavan defeat in Ulster plummeted them down the rankings. Let's move on to Roscommon, who are at number 8. They're down 1 place because Cavan have moved up. I kept my powder dry in Cavan for a while. You know I don't like to get carried away. You know that these perfect, bulletproof power rankings don't like to get carried away. They deal with facts and facts only. And I just wanted to wait and see them get the job done against Armagh before I said, tick, tick, tick. Congratulations, Cavan. you're the 7th best team in the country. So we can officially say that this morning. Congratulations to everybody in Cavan. I'm sure you'll be delighted, and it'll be pinned to your dressing room wall as a matter of hope over the coming weeks. Galway then are down 1-6. Mayo are down 1-5. Tyrone are down 2-4. Kerry are 3 at a non-mover. And this is all because our new 2nd best team in the country and the best team that will not win Sam Maguire this year is Donegal. Beat Tyrone at the weekend in seriously impressive fashion. Many of us will have suspected that Donegal were the best team in Ulster. They proved it on Saturday. They should win the Ulster Final. It will be a good game.
If Roscommon beat Galway, will you then put them ahead of the Mayo team that they've already beaten? Is the point of the power rankings not to say, if these two teams met today, this team would win? Yeah?
And at number 1, we've got Dublin.
Is it not? Is it not? Is it not? So
No.
therefore, when Roscommon beat Mayo, they should be ahead of them.
Styles and all that sort of thing come into play when one team plays
You're
another.
just making shit up, basically.
I'm not making shit up.
Yeah.
I'm saying
the
that
power
it's...
rankings completely invented. The whole point of it is that one team would beat the team behind them.
Yeah.
And so when they do that, you automatically have to say, on the basis of the most recent evidence.
No. It's mostly based on, say, if they played each other 10 times in a week.
No, that's not a real thing.
It is.
It's not. It doesn't happen.
No,
that's not a real thing.
A real
They don't play 10 times. They play
a
once.
real thing is a team playing one another once, and a fake thing would be to say, just because that result happened over the course of 70 minutes, there might have been injuries. Oh, I don't know, like Mayo's best forward being injured,
and therefore,
and that result happened as a result of that. Or maybe, they missed a load of frees, or maybe they missed the opportunity to knock the ball over the bar to equalise the game. Maybe they had tons of opportunities.
So therefore,
that they
they're
didn't
behind
take,
them.
and actually, given the level that they played at, might actually be a better team than the other one.
Mayo had a home game against Roscommon and are 5 places ahead of them?
2, 3.
3 too many. They should be
Are
behind
you a
them.
complete rookie?
Yeah, are you? You must be, because you don't understand the method of the power ranking. You are a scoreboard journalist. All you're doing is obsessing over what happened in Castlebar a couple of weeks ago. The reality here is that Mayo are still a better team than Roscommon, and I'm open to change here. I could be open to change. This summer
You're
may
not.
prove.
You're not.
This summer may prove that Roscommon are better than Mayo. They've already gone one step to proving that, but they haven't gone the full way.
By a man's company, so shall you know
Here,
him, is all I'm going to say.
Perfect example is Roscommon Mayo 2017. What happened when they when they played in the first game in Croke Park? Roscommon should have beaten them. Mayo were lucky to get out. What happened the week after?
They whooped them.
Mayo absolutely tore them limb from limb.
Yeah.
One game does not a power ranking spot make.
Power rankings are bullshit. That's all I'll say.
They're flawless.
That's all I'll say.
If that's your definition of bullshit, then you need to get a severe reality check.
Anyway, you're keeping company with Lance Armstrong in advance of making your debut as a triathlete cyclist. I'm interested to see the improvement in your performance from the last time we went out for a cycle to this weekend. That's all I'm saying.
I am on the EPO.
Off the Ball is back on the road again in association with Super Value from St Finbarr's GAA Club. We're in St Finbarr's GAA Club on Thursday the 20th of June in Cork. This is going to be great, talking all things Munster Final. Can Cork get back to their days of glory? Or are Kerry still the kings of the province? This is an exclusive off-air event, so the only way to enjoy it is to be there in the night. For more information, just log on to offtheball.com/events. There will be some Kerry legends in the lines down, and there will be some Cork legends there talking about those times when we gave Cork much better than 50-50 chance of winning that game. Do you give them any chance of winning that game?
Yeah, of course.
No, really, honestly, what?
It's in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. It's a performance they put in the last day, which it doesn't really suggest that they're kind of an also-ran, as in the way you can pull a team apart like that comes from a ruthlessness, comes from a quality up front that not a lot of teams have. I don't think they will win the game. I must just put that out there. I think Kerry will win by 4 or 5 points. But if you'd made that prediction last year, and there might have been evidence to suggest that could have been the case last year, it would be a narrow game but Kerry would win, you would have been completely wrong after what happened. You might have been a little bit worried after the opening couple of minutes in last year's Munster Final, but clearly things were just not right in that Cork team. They proved that as well, perhaps this year in the league. People who'd like to take that side, but I just think their opening salvo against Limerick this year just kind of shows that they have come back, and Kerry have come back to the pack in Munster as well, let's not forget. I mean, this is very much pressing the reset button year for Kerry. This is a regeneration process. Next year, basically the importance for Cork to actually keep improving now is to actually keep up with Kerry, because Kerry are going to start moving away again. this is their one chance to cause Kerry some serious issues, and I think they will.
Danny Ryan's been in touch to say Gerry Gilroy can snigger all he wants, but Eoin Sheahan Power Rankings is OTB AM.
Yeah.
Suck it up, Ger.
He's right. Thank you.
You've got a couple of alter egos on the internet, do you? Multiple burner
I'm like
accounts.
Kevin Durant. I've just got another phone down here. A third arm kind of lingering below.
One of the US stars during last night's record-breaking defeat of Thailand, Rihanna Jarrett, has a special fondness for the American... one of the US stars during last night's record-breaking defeat of Thailand, Megan Rapinoe. It turns out Rihanna Jarrett from Ireland has a very special fondness for her. Here's why.
I have a soft spot for Megan Rapinoe.
Megan Rapinoe, I think, is a brilliant player.
Even obviously the injury category, she's done her knee three times as well, and she's come back, and
yeah, you can
she is
identify
at
with her. Did she tweet you one time?
So when she didn't tweet me, I got tweet off Jack Wilshere.
Sorry, that was on it. Go on.
When I done my knee for the third time, we were away in the Cyprus Cup. And Jerry McDermott, who was our media officer, he knew someone who knew her, and he reached out, and we were just on the bus coming back from training, and he was like, I have something to show you. So we came up, and she sent me an email.
Good way.
Obviously just talking about the...
Emails even better than tweets.
Talking about the highs and lows, and that she's been there, and obviously it's a select group, and she has a campaign about that for people that do their ACLs. And it was just nice for, obviously, she's no idea who I am, never met me before in my life, and obviously sent me a huge email. So that
my favourite American player from now on. That's so lovely. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so more of that goodness from Off the Bench. You can subscribe to the podcast, or of course you can catch it on all of our social channels. Phil Egan is here. Phil, you were watching that game last night. Owen thought that they should have stopped running up the score.
I have no problem with that. Maybe just tone down the celebrations a bit, but... No, everyone's talking about the American team, who are the defending champions, 3-time winners, and the best team in the world. But people are talking them down.
Yeah.
So here they come and they say, right, we're going to show you how good we are. They win 13-0. Now, we didn't learn anything from them because Thailand had one shot on target. From what I remember in the first half, they had one attack, and the difference in quality, even the difference in size. Every time the ball went into the box, you feared for Thailand from set pieces. Although the Americans were quite clever with some of their set pieces. But I wanted to see what they were made of, because I'm kind of looking at the France-America quarterfinal. Now, this is something that came up actually on RTE did the game last night. RTE and TJ Carr, who are doing a great job, by the way. The two of them are sharing the coverage, but they were talking about the fact that the USA still have to play Sweden. Sweden are a credible opponent. If they were to lose to Sweden, would that be such a bad thing? Because they'd avoid France.
It was Sweden who knocked them out of the Olympic Games.
Olympics, yeah.
So, and that's been the one thing that everybody's been like, well, this US team, enjoy your glory in 2015. The new world order is coming in the shape of Norway. Obviously, things have changed a little bit there. In the shape of France. And potentially, the Lionesses may come roaring into 2019 as well. This is clearly a ridiculous notion. The United States need to be taken as seriously as any other team in this competition. If you beat a team 13-0 and you hold up this bargain that, they didn't win the Olympics, it's an absolute nonsense. I mean, this for me makes them favourites again. This puts them right in the line. Thailand aren't even the worst team in the competition. I think there's 4 teams ranked worse than them.
Yeah, I'd like to see how the other teams do against Thailand. I was watching the Sweden and Chile game, which was strange. I thought Sweden would win, but it was played in torrential rain. They actually stopped the game for a while, for 20 minutes to come back.
Score?
They won 2-0. They scored 2 late goals, but Sweden and the US is going to be a fair indication of exactly how good the US are. And we're going to get another look at France tonight, who obviously started with a win over Korea, and they look like they've so many of the Leon contingent that it's hard not to favour them. And that quarter-final will be an absolute belter. But if America were to lose to Sweden, would it be such a bad thing? They'd be on the easier side of the draw. But then again, the USA want to go in and hammer everyone and say, no, we're the best.
And shouldn't they just take France out of the quarterfinals, and then suddenly it's a coast through, and that's your, you can get everybody up for that game anyway, right?
Yeah, they probably have England in a semi-final as well. But
to remind everybody that we've joined forces with 3 and the 20x20 campaign to bring you the most exciting event of the summer. It's our very first all-female roadshow celebrating the best of Irish women in sport. 20x20 is celebrating role models and the essential part they play in getting women and girls into sport. On the 11th of July, We're going to feature 3 different panels of Irish legends and icons who will inspire with their stories. This event will take place in the Alex Hotel. There are limited tickets, so get yours fast. This is an exclusive off-air event again, so the only way you can see it is being there. For more information, head over to offtheball.com/events.
So it was 13-0 against Thailand in France last night, and it was only 3-0 at half-time. We were thinking, I think my prediction was 5-0, and because I've been over-predicting in terms of goals, so I was saying I won't go too high, but...
Turns out you've been under-predicting.
Yeah, well, they scored 5 goals in the last 12 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
that's ruthless.
Yeah, absolutely. Before that, by the way, the biggest win at the World Cup in the Women's World Cup was 11-0 for Germany against Argentina in 2007. Also wins yesterday for the Netherlands and Sweden. Host France can make it 2 wins from 2 this evening. They take on Norway from 8 o'clock. And again, that game will give us a good indication of how good France really are and the pressure of being the host. First up at 2 o'clock today, in the same group as France and Norway, you've Nigeria and South Korea. And then Germany, former winners of the competition, play Spain at 5 o'clock. Both sides won their opening games. Ireland play Italy this afternoon in their final pool game. Before I actually go to that, sorry, I should talk about Robbie Keane, because we're going to find out probably in the next hour or so just how true the reports of Robbie Keane going to Middlesbrough are. A lot of the papers running the story that he is going to Middlesbrough to link up with Jonathan Woodgate, who looks pretty much nailed on to get the manager's job. Tony Pulis was sacked at the end of the season because they missed out in the playoffs. Woodgate was a first-team coach under Pulis and a former Middlesbrough player. Looks like he's going to get the job. Played with Keane at Leeds and Tottenham. And it appears that Keane, who's obviously part of Mick McCarthy's coaching staff, could combine both roles. And McCarthy himself has previously said that Robbie Keane has got his head screwed on in terms of wanting to be a coach or a manager, and whoever, or we obviously know Stephen Kenny is going to take over from Mick McCarthy, that Robbie Keane should be part of that succession. He should stay on with the senior management.
Well, I think Stephen Kenny should get to pick his own team.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also the time when McCarthy was asked about Robbie Keane coming on board, when he said it was Robbie Keane that suggested it, and he referred to him as cheeky bollocks. Yeah. Stephen Kenny and his under-21s are back in action this afternoon. They play Brazil in the semi-finals of the Toulon tournament, that one at 4:30. Last night in the European qualifiers, Northern Ireland made it 4 wins from 4 in Group C. First time they've won their first 4 games of a qualifying campaign. They beat Belarus 1-0 away from home thanks to a late goal from Paddy McNair, but the toughest games are yet to come. They still have to play Germany twice, and they have to play the Netherlands twice as well. Elsewhere last night, Scotland lost 3-0 away to Belgium in Group I. Romelu Lukaku scored twice. Kevin De Bruyne finished off the scoring in injury time. Wales were beaten 1-0 in Hungary in Group E. Ryan Giggs, after the game, absolved Gareth Bale of any blame. It was 0-0 when he missed a gilt-edged chance, and then a few minutes later, Hungary got the winning goal. Ireland play Italy this afternoon in their final pool game at the World Under-20 Rugby Championship. The Six Nations champions and Grand Slam winners will need a bonus point to have any chance of reaching the last 4, and then even that they still have to depend on results elsewhere. That game starts at 2:30 in Argentina. Warren Gatland will be confirmed as head coach of the British and Irish Lions for the tour of South Africa in 2021 later this morning. Around 11 o'clock that announcement is due. The New Zealander was in charge of the Lions when they won the tour in Australia in 2013, took charge of the drawn series against the All Blacks in 2017. And the GAA has confirmed there will be no international rules series again this year, but they do hope to stage the competition against Australia in 2020. Talk of it going to the USA.
Yeah, I'd heard about those rumours. Bring back the international rules. What's wrong with the international rules?
Everybody hates it.
No, I love it.
Do you? You'd love a trip to America to go and watch it, wouldn't you?
I'd love that, actually. I got up at like 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning 2 years ago at this point now to watch the first test of that. And I did the same for the other test.
And you were the only one.
I don't think so. I think I got invited onto Australian radio because my tweets were so hot.
Did you do the piece?
I did, yeah.
Did you swear on Australian radio again?
Yeah, I did. That was the piece where I swore on it.
Oh, right, okay. And you ended up talking about Michael Cheika. They're like, who?
Yeah, they didn't know it was Melbourne. So they didn't know the rugby union from any other sport, to be quite honest with you. So
Funny.
That's sort of opportunities the international rules gives to people. So I think just bring it back ASAP.
It's not good to watch them.
It's great to watch.
Is it?
Oh,
I like Aussie rules. Obviously, I like GAA, but I just don't. I just think the thing that makes Aussie rules so good is the shape of the ball and the helter-skelter, the ball bouncing
the worst
around.
thing about Aussie rules.
No.
Play Aussie rules with a round ball and it'd be a better sport.
It'd be so much slower, and there'd be less hits in it.
With a round ball.
Yeah.
Would there not be more hits?
No, I like when the ball just goes loose and there's just lads flaking each other and you don't know where the ball is going. Whereas if it's round, obviously, it's easier to predict.
They'd have skills.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I do enjoy watching them try to kick the round ball.
No, the best part about it is like watching Aidan O'Shea and Diarmuid Connolly in the same team. Like there is such a beautiful novelty value to all of that. And also sticking it to the Aussies like 2006.
Why not play a half with the round ball and a half with the Aussies ball?
There you go. You're onto something. That could save the international rules.
We'd kill them in our half, and they'd kill us. And
they'd
kill us. We wouldn't be able to kick
them. Sure, it's already played in a round ball, and we don't always kill them. We only kill them when they're not up first.
Sorry, yeah.
I would like to see the likes of.
Well, they wouldn't practice with the round ball anymore. They would just assume that they'd be like 60 points up, which they would be.
Yeah, they would absolutely pulverise us with the we just need to like basically pick rugby players, basically pick a load of rugby out halves.
I just like the thoughts of GAA officials going around saying, "Oh, we saw you practicing with a ball that wasn't round, and you get fined or you get
banned."
Get banned.
The only thing better than seeing Aidan O'Shea and Diarmuid Connolly on the same team would be seeing Aidan O'Shea and Joey Carberry on the same team. Now, that would make it international, and that would bring rugby union to Melbourne. It's all like it's a marketing hotbed right here. The GAA needs to take this, abandon it, forget championship structures, forget fixing the Leicester Championship. International rules is the most important.
4 quarters, throw in a rugby ball for a quarter. You may as well throw in hurling for a quarter as well.
May as well. Kick the sliotar.
If you did it once every 4 years, like would that be something? So it was a big deal, and getting on the team was a big deal, and it wasn't because it became too regular, and you were kind of almost guaranteed that you were going to get a trip. Whereas now it's like a big deal. Would that work?
Maybe.
And if it was better planned, where certain inter-county players are in club games, so they don't get to play. So if it was planned a bit better.
I mean, when it's in Australia, it could be in February, right? Would we be missing anything if it was down?
We would just get absolutely burnt to a crisp.
That'd be all right, though.
It would be fine. That'd be a big lever.
You're only gone for 12 days, so.
Mm-hmm. Purple weather warning, as the Irish people themselves are actually turning purple in Australia.
Okay. I realise that this is a very important thing for you, but most of the rest of the lads will have normal skin and won't actually burn to a crisp. They'll be able to kind of wear sunscreen and put a hat on.
I've never heard of that possibility.
Is that the only reason, apart from the, like...
Could, yeah, I guess so. Although that's going to clash with the pre-season for the provincial championships, of course, with our brand new championship structure.
So it's dead, basically, is what you're saying. It's dead, and there's no point in rescuing it. And
there's so many points in rescuing it.
You want to send Owen to... What part of America would you like to be in?
I haven't been to San Francisco.
Yeah, let's go to California. couple of good GAA pitches out there.
Thank you, Phil, for becoming my boss and sending me on this junket. I really appreciate it. Save the Aussie rules, put it in San Francisco, and the Aussies and Irish will love one another again.
Yeah, and Owen gets to go on Aussie radio then.
Right. Is that you done?
That is me done.
All right, good stuff. If you want to get in touch with us this morning, you can use the hashtag OTB AM. You can also get us on Twitter and Facebook, and also on YouTube. Our YouTube subscribers are nearly hitting 50,000, so if you haven't already got over there and subscribed, now would be a great time to do so. You just click subscribe, and anytime we go live, we will ping you a little notification, and we'll pop up, and you'll be ready to go. Some good stuff for you on tomorrow's show. Kieran Donaghy is going to look back on his shot clock. Michael Meehan is going to join us as we preview the Connacht final. If Anthony Cunningham was to do something with Roscommon, does that make him the greatest GAA manager of all time? Or is he like in the conversation suddenly catapulted? Like the cross-sport two things, successful
He
club?
would have needed to win an All-Ireland with Galway first of all, and then if you ally, say, an All-Ireland semi-final with Roscommon, that would have put him in the conversation, but he didn't win the All-Ireland with Galway, and he may not get to an All-Ireland semi-final with Roscommon.
I mean, he drew an All-Ireland final, greatest team of all time.
I know.
Got to an All-Ireland club final, Gary Castle.
And St. Bridget's as well, a decade before that.
Yeah, like, I mean...
It's a pretty ridiculous thing he's doing.
It is.
When you think about it.
There is absolutely no way in hell anybody should be able to do that, or like especially like coming from such a high level of hurling to be able to go within a matter of years to such a high level of football. It is a ridiculous achievement. There is no question about it. But greatest GAA manager of all time, I think. Like it's a nice idea. Like maybe if he wins the All-Ireland with Roscommon, we can maybe start thinking about that.
So it's Jim Gavin, Mick O'Dwyer, Mickey Hart, Brian Cody.
You probably have...
no other hurling managers making it?
I'm trying to think. I'm not sure. That's a very modern list you've got going on there.
Mick O'Dwyer.
Yeah, but like, I mean, going back before that, like,
So you stick Hefo on it if you want.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know, the original managers in the 20s and 30s. Like it's.
Okay, well let's ignore.
Eamon O'Sullivan.
Let's just ignore. So let's say. Let's pick after we join the EU.
Okay.
Colour TV.
Lamass forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you basically asking me, are you putting Anthony Cunningham in that frame if Roscommon win the All-Ireland?
Well, if they win the All-Ireland, you have to, right?
You have to. But right now, no.
There's how far away from it is he?
Like, he's a really good manager, like, don't get me wrong, but like, you can't just casually say, yeah, Anthony Cunningham's up there with Mick O'Dwyer and Jim Gavin.
If he does win the All-Ireland, he'll...
like, he's won the All-Ireland with Roscommon.
Roscommon would still probably be behind Mayo in the power rankings, would they?
They would, of course.
Yeah, Mayo will beat them next year, don't worry.
Yeah, that's what...
Doesn't matter what he did with Galway if he wins the All-Ireland with Roscommon. Like, that's an outrageous achievement. That automatically puts him up there, of course it does.
Does it mean that counties are going to start looking at managers that are successful in the other code and go, ooh?
Definitely. I like, it'll be interesting. We can't gauge it now because obviously his time was cut short, but Pat Gilroy's time at Dublin would be very interesting to analyse in terms of the players. Like, how much of a hands-on role was it? How much actually is he just a manager? How much is he in terms of facilitating great coaches and a great backroom team? I think that's a huge part of it. And perhaps there's a motivational element to it as well. I'd imagine Liam Sheedy is kind of taking on a similar role at the moment, particularly in his second stint with Tip.
He seems very on the sideline involved, and 74 minutes into a 20-point win, he's still there giving out to lads and wiring into them, to use Dahi's language, to make sure that they're not stepping off. So it doesn't seem like he's just a facilitator.
No, not a facilitator, more of a CEO, but he's...
Vocal CEO.
Yeah, the CEO who gives the pep talk very frequently. That's kind of what strikes me of that. So definitely, I think there's... And is it just limited to Gaelic games as well? Obviously, you need to have some sort of expertise in it, but like coming from another inter-county code, doesn't just have to be that. Of course, I wouldn't dare suggest that a hurling team should take on someone like Dougie Howlett or anything like that after the vicious backlash that got on the hurling show here and Off the Ball, but maybe that's a conversation for another day.
I wonder, Jason Ryan, obviously unbelievably successful with the Wexford footballers, and you see kind of where Wexford have come since he stepped away. He's actually from Waterford and was linked with the Waterford hurling job at one point, so it's not beyond the bounds possibility that they go and say, yeah, actually this is what we need at the minute.
For sure. Like, it's, as I say, that particular set of skills, ultimately what are you bringing somebody in for? What percentage of it is coming from your hurling blood, your knowledge of or your kind of theory on whether or not a sweeper is a good or a bad idea in hurling? Maybe that is the very thing you should be bringing somebody in on, and maybe this is actually a false thing to be talking about, but I think there's great scope for moving between the two codes.
I think that people are locked in the whole notion that if you think a sweeper is a good thing, you must play a sweeper for the 77 minutes of a game, as opposed to there's a 10-minute period here where we're struggling a little bit, we're going to move a sweeper back, and then we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to keep the opposition guessing, as opposed to, oh, I'm a sweeper man, and that's it.
Well, exactly. Like, Donegal's performance on Saturday night kind of proved that as well. You don't just have to be a blanket defence team. You can actually look at the opposition and say, this is the perfect time to play blanket defence because we're 4 points up, we want to see it home until half time, and guess what, that team likes pumping route one ball into their full forward. Let's play blanket defence for a little while and then let's go attack them again in the second half. It's in and out of those systems is the way to do it, really.
All right, a reminder that on the radio this evening, the lads are going to be talking to Paul Rouse. It's a return of our history series. Tomorrow, Kieran Donaghy's back for Shot Clock, and as I said, Michael Meehan will be with us as we preview the Connacht final. Before you go, have a look at some of these. It's some of our best stuff from last night. Carl Lacey and Gary Breen both joined Joe and gave some interesting insights into Arsenal and the Seamus Coleman versus Doherty debate.
I don't know how genuine it was from Arsene Wenger himself, but I received a letter. Yeah, obviously I've contacts over at Arsenal. I've been over at their training centre a few times, and that was the guys know that I followed them fairly close, and they organised that Arsenal would send me a letter of congratulations when we won All-Ireland, so it's nice to have, and I think it's actually in the Croke Park GAA Museum at the moment, so I must get it back off them.
Was this as part of your Masters in High Performance at Limerick that you were over there?
Yeah, so I was doing my Masters in Limerick and I had to do placement as part of it, so got in contact with Desmond Ryan, who's a Galway man, he's over there, and he says, yeah, no problem. He took me over on a 2-week placement, so I spent 2 weeks over there in their high performance academy, shadowing the coaches and getting an overview of everything that goes on at Arsenal.
What did you take away from that?
Just took away, I suppose, the resources that they have, compared to what we have. The levels that they go to in terms of their detail. Coming in every morning, getting their medical checks done, before they go training.
So if they're not ready to train or if they didn't sleep well,
more or less screened from head to toe. Getting blood samples taken, hydration, urine. It's seeing exactly, well, is this guy fit to train? Is he fit to give it 100% now when we go out to the training ground for an hour? Is he at the level? I suppose it happens in the GAA too, but probably at a smaller scale.
Piss in a bucket there and I'll have a look at it.
Exactly, yeah. More or less. But yeah, just the levels of detail that they go into. But again, the resources they have, and you're trying to take any little wee bit that you can, that they do. Well, we could do that there. Maybe it's not as fancy. It mightn't be on 20 iPads, but we could do pen and paper.
A lot of the talk again in terms of is, can we shoehorn Matt Doherty into this team, and why can't he? Look how well he's playing in the Premier League. And I've been a massive admirer of what he has done, but Mick will make that decision. It's either Matt Doherty or Seamus Coleman. That's the decision. Now, people will say, well, no, he should be able to pick him. Well, Mick's had tougher decisions. I said this to you before, Joe. You had Gary Kelly, Steve Finnan, and Stephen Carr. And all three are better than Seamus Coleman and Matt Doherty, in my opinion. And he made a decision. Now, people will say, well, listen, why can't he find a way? If he feels that Matt Doherty can play in another position, Mick has done that before as well. Because if you think about the 2002 World Cup, Gary Kelly nailed down that right wing position in front of Steve Finnan, so he can do it. Mick's obviously looked at it and made a decision. He's not sure he can now. If we look at Matt Doherty, in terms of how good he is for Wolves, it's because he's got two central midfielders who don't give the ball away. That's the difference. Moutinho, Neves allows him to get up the pitch and affect the game. So we don't quite have that right now. And we have, the reason I say we won't play two centre forwards is because we've got two centre midfielders who can't play on their own in there. There's no doubt. In fact, I don't think we've had any who can play in a flat two in centre midfield since the World Cup in Japan. We don't have players of that ability. We need a third man in there.